ขอความนอบน้อมจงมีแด่พระผู้มีพระภาคเจ้าผู้เป็นพระหันตรัสรู้ชอบได้โดยพระองค์เองขออาการอันประเจริญมิตรละขอเจริญสุขสวัสดิ์พิพัฒนมงคลความงอกงามไพบูลย์ในธรรมจงมีแด่พี่น้องสัตว์ชนผู้ใคร่ในธรรมวันนี้เป็นวันอาทิตย์ที่8เดือนกันยายน2567นะ Good morning, our friend in the Dhamma. Today is 8th of September 2024, 2567 Buddhist century. วันนี้เป็นโอกาสดีอีกวันหนึ่งที่เราได้มีลมหายใจเรื่องเราเกิดมามีภาระหน้าที่หน้าที่ติดตัวหน้าที่โดยธรรมชาติหน้าที่โดยบทบาทการงานและหน้าที่ของความเป็นมนุษย์หน้าที่หลายเรื่องแม้จะไม่ใช่หน้าที่เราโดยตรงแม้จะไม่ใช่หน้าที่แต่หากเป็นความดีก็จะต้องทำเพราะความดีนั้นจะน้อมนำเป็นเสบียงเลี้ยงเรานะเพราะว่าอย่าดูหมิ่นบุญกรรมว่าทำน้อยจะไม่ติดต้อยตามสนองผลนะเหมือนหยาดน้ำอย่าอยากได้น้อยแต่อยากบ่อยๆตกในตุ่มก็ทำให้ตุ่มเต็มได้ฉันใดบุคคลก็ไม่ควรประมาทฉันนั้นนะในช่วงเบื้องนี้ช่วงนี้ก็สภาพอากาศก็วันนี้มีวันฝนตกปล่อยๆแต่ไม่ใช่หิมะลงเนาะแต่ได้ฉากให้เห็นนี่ให้มองเห็นย้อนช่วงเดือนมกราปีนี้ที่ผ่านมาสภาพมกราก็มีโอกาสที่ความหนาวความเย็นของสภาพที่นี่ฉะนั้นก็เป็นบรรยากาศหนึ่งแต่ช่วงนี้บรรยากาศจะเป็นความเขียวสดเขียวสดสมควรตอนนี้เพราะว่าเป็นช่วงที่มีความเขียวชอุ่มนะฉะนั้นตรงนี้ก็จะทำให้เราได้เห็นนะความนะเปลี่ยนแปลงนะความสภาพดินฟ้าอากาศนะสภาพดินฟ้าอากาศนั้นก็เป็นเรื่องของธรรมชาติที่คงหมุนเวียนเปลี่ยนไปเป็นเรื่องราวที่เราต้องประสบพบเจอพูดง่ายๆว่าเรื่องไตรลักษณ์นะลักษณะที่เสมอกันทั่วไปถ้าเรียกว่าสามัญญลักษณะมีลักษณะทั่วไปท่านกลับไว้ในกฎไตรลักษณ์นะเราท่านทั้งหลายทุกชีวิตที่เกิดมาภายใต้ดวงอาทิตย์ภายใต้บนโลกแห่งเนี้ยก็มีสิ่งที่ต้องประสบพบเจอเบื้องกันเรียกว่ากฎไตรลักษณ์กฎที่หนึ่งคือความไม่เที่ยงแท้แน่นอนหรืออนิจจัง impermanent ความเปลี่ยนแปลงต้องเจอตลอดเราลองนึกเล่นๆเมื่อย้อน20ปีหรือ10ปีที่ผ่านมาเราไม่ได้เป็นอย่างนี้นะ20ปีที่ผ่านมาที่เรานั่งปัจจุบันเราเลิกดูมันไม่ได้เป็นอย่างนี้แล้วเราไม่ได้อายุมากขนาดนี้ไม่ได้แก่ขนาดนี้แล้วก็นองย้อนอีก20ปีข้างหน้าGood morning ท่านสมเกียรติใช่ชิโตโรชิโตโรก็เมื่อไหร่พระอาจารย์จะมาเยี่ยมเมื่อไหร่พระอาจารย์มาไทยเมื่อไหร่จะได้ไปเยี่ยมก็คงจะเป็นปีใหม่นะโยมลิเดียจากลอนดอนนะกราบนมัสการพระอาจารย์เจ้าค่ะเจริญพรตอนเช้านะวันนี้ที่อากาศที่แมนเชสเตอร์ฝนตกปล่อยๆนะฝนตกก็อากาศก็ครึ้มฟ้าครึ้มฝนนะก็ต้องระวังเอาแหละที่นี่ฝนตกเป็นเรื่องธรรมชาติที่เราไม่สามารถที่จะห้ามได้เพราะว่าฝนตกแดดออกลมแรงพายุเราไม่สามารถที่จะห้ามได้ฉันใดการที่จะมีคนนินทาสรรเสริญเราก็ไม่สามารถที่จะห้ามได้ฉะนั้นดังนั้นเมื่อธรรมชาติสอนเราว่าแดดออกฝนตกเราห้ามไม่ได้แล้วก็มีวิธีหลบแดดให้อยู่ในร่มในรถในที่ร่มในที่กำบังก็กันแดดกันฝนได้เช่นเดียวกันเมื่อเราเจออะไรที่ภายนอกเราก็สามารถหลบนะรู้จักหลบเป็นปีกรู้จักหลีกเป็นหางบอกหลบเป็นปีกหลีกเป็นหางดังนั้นการรู้จักหลบก็จะไม่เป็นปีกพูดไปพูดมาแล้วง่วงนอนเลยโยมฟังสารัตธรรมฟังพระพูดบางทีทำให้ง่วงนะโยมขนาดพระพูดเองยังง่วงอยู่ แต่ยังไงความง่วงเหงาหอนอนเป็นเรื่องธรรมดาของร่างกายมันเป็นเรื่องของถีนมิทะแม้จะพักผ่อนเพียงพอแต่บางทีมันก็ยังแสดงความง่วงอยู่ซึ่งตรงนี้ก็เป็นเรื่องธรรมดาเราท่านทั้งหลายก็ดูแล้วที่จริงเราความนิวรณ์ที่มันมาครอบงำจิตครอบงำใจเรานี่ถ้ามันนิวรณ์ห้าทำเป็นเครื่องจิตไม่ให้บรรลุความเป็นจังหวะนิวรธรรมได้แก่กามฉันทะพยาบาททินมิทะพุทธะจักกุกจะวิกิกิจฉานี่เป็นภาษาบาลีโยมฟังแล้วอาจจะงงกันนะโยมเดียเราจะงงนะที่จะงงเพราะว่ากามฉันทะคือความกำหนัดพอใจพอใจในสิ่งที่เรามีพอใจในสิ่งที่เราหลงในรูปในเสียงในกลิ่นในรสเรียกว่ากามฉันทะนะกามฉันทะนี่คือความพอใจในกามอันที่สองพยาบาทความอาฆาตพยาบาทความก็เป็นอารมณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นกับจิตทำให้ขัดทำให้ไม่บรรลุความดีนะกามฉันทะพยาบาทถีนมิทะคือความง่วงเหงาหอนอนนะถีนความง่วงเหงาหอนอนนี่ก็เป็นนิวรธรรมกั้นจิตนะไม่ให้บรรลุความดีจะทำอะไรก็ง่วงเหงาหอนอนมีชาบิกีชากามฉันทะพยาบาทถีนมิทะการมฉันทะพยาบาทที่ท่านอุทัจจกุจจะวิกิกิจฉาอันที่สามเนี่ยมีกันนะมีที่สามโยมจะนั่งสมาธิโอ้บางทีความง่วงเข้ามาแล้วได้ยินพระเทศน์นี่หลับมันดีตรงไหนโยมดีคนที่นอนไม่หลับเครียดมากคิดมากพอฟังพระเทศน์หลับบางคนถือหนังสือสวดมนต์ถือหนังสือธรรมะไปปุ๊บยังไม่ได้อ่านถึง2 หน้าเลยหลับเลยมันก็ดีเป็นยาสำหรับคนที่ไม่หลับนะดังนั้นในเรื่องของนิวรธรรมที่เป็นเครื่องกั้นจิตมี5 อย่างอันที่1กำหนัดอันที่2ขัดเครื่องอันที่3ฟุ้งซ่านรำคาญที่4ลังเลสงสัยฟุ้งซ่านรำคาญแล้วก็วิกิจฉาลังเลสงสัยเมื่อเหตุ5อย่างนี้เกิดขึ้นกับใจครอบงำจิตใจรบใจเมื่อนั้นแหละจะทำให้เราไล่มีเครื่องกั้นฉะนั้นในตรงนี้ก็อยากจะนำมาเล่านะในเรื่องของสิ่งที่เราจะต้องประสบพบเจอวันนี้นำประเด็นให้เรื่องราวที่จะลำไตรลักษณ์ที่เราจะต้องพิจารณาเนืองๆเพื่อนเมื่อวันที่7ที่ผ่านมาได้ก็ได้เผาพระรุ่นน้องท่านธนูจันพิรมได้มรณภาพอายุเพิ่งจะ50 กว่าเรื่องความตายนะเราเรื่องความตายที่จริงหลายคนไม่อยากพูดเรื่องความตายไม่อยากพูดความตายกลัวแต่ในทางพุทธศาสนาท่านบอกว่าท่านนึกถึงความตายมันเป็นบุญเป็นกุศลเนี่ยนะโยมนึกถึงความตายสบายนักมันถอนรักหักหลงในสงสารบรรเทาความมืดมนอนตการทำให้ใจหายสะดุ้งไม่ยุ่งใจนี่คือความตายถ้าเรานึกถึงมันก็เป็นกุศลนะพอนึกถึงความตายเราจะโมโหโกรธาใครก็ไม่โมโหทำไมก็ตายจากกันไปโลภไปโกรธตัวมากมายนะบางเรื่องเราก็พักบ้างไม่ต้องไปขยันทุกเรื่องหรอกนะนี่ต้องมาบอกตัวเองอยู่บอกตัวเองว่าเราบางเรื่องเนี่ยไปขยันทุกเรื่องตายเลยนะขยันช่วงนี้มีคนบอกว่ามีโยมส่งไลน์มาให้ว่าอาจารย์นะเพราะว่าคนขยันอยู่ที่ไหนก็ไม่สบายแล้วก็คำนะอยู่ที่ไหนก็ไม่สบายเจริญพรโยมนัทลีโยมทลีอนุโมทนาเราโยมพี่นูวันโยมพี่วันนะเจริญพรวันนี้นำมาพูดเรื่องของไตรลักษณ์กฎธรรมชาติที่เราจะต้องพบเจอกันนะก็มาพิจารณาเรื่องไตรลักษณ์อนิจจังทุกขังอนัตตาอนิจจัง the impermanent ใช้คำว่า nothing permanent everything is impermanent ทุกอย่างไม่เที่ยงแท้ไม่แน่นอนเปลี่ยนไปตามเหตุปัจจัยนี่คือ impermanent เจริญพรโยมราตรีพิงสุสันเนาะเพียงหรือพิงนะพิงสุสันโยมลิเดียก็อนุโมทนามรณานุสตินะได้พูดถึงเรื่องอนิจจังเปลี่ยนแปลงนึกถึง มรณานุสติเขาเป็นสติน้อมนึกถึงความตายว่าเราจะต้องตายคนอื่นตายแล้วก็เห็นคนอื่นคนแก่คนเจ็บคนตายแล้วก็น้อมมาถึงตัวเองเพราะในเทวทูตสูตรนะโยมในพระไตรปิฎกถ้าเปิดเข้าไปจะมีหนังสือเรื่องราวเกี่ยวกับพระไตรปิฎกในเทวทูตสูตรเรื่องพระเทวทูตสูตรเนี่ยคนเรานะเวลาหลังจากละโลกนี้ไปแล้วเนี่ยก็ยมมาทูตก็จะนำไปสอบสวนนำไปอินเตอร์วิวนะในโลกโลกว่าเห็นคนแก่เห็นคนเจ็บและคนตายจะคิดยังไงนะถ้าสัตว์ผู้ละโลกนี้ไปแล้วบอกว่าเห็นคนแก่คนเจ็บคนตายก็เฉยๆแสดงว่าประมาทในชีวิตแล้วถ้าเราตอบอย่างคนได้เรียนรู้ได้ศึกษาธรรมก็บอกเห็นคนแก่โอ้ก็ต้องน้อมมาสักวันเราก็ต้องแก่เห็นคนเจ็บไข้ได้ป่วยก็น้อมมาสักวันเราต้องเจ็บไข้ได้ป่วยเห็นคนตายแล้วก็น้อมมาสักวันเราก็ต้องตายนี่มีคนติดคำว่าโยมพระไม่ตายพระไม่ตายถ้าตายนี่เป็นที่จริงพระไม่ตายเราคือมรณภาพเพราะว่าพระเสียชีวิตเขาไม่เรียกว่าตายเขาเรียกมรณภาพมรณะแปลว่าสภาวะที่ค่ำค่าที่จากไปนะฉะนั้นเรื่องตายรักก็ท่องเอาไว้กันแล้วกันเนาะอนิจจังทุกขังอนัตตารู้เรื่องหน้าเสียก่อนไม่ร้อนใจนะอนิจจังความไม่แน่นอนของสรรพสิ่งเปลี่ยนไปทุกครั้งสภาพที่ทนยากแล้วก็อนัตตาสภาพที่บังคับบัญชาไม่ได้ทำไมเรียกว่าอนัตตาล่ะโยมที่เรียกอนัตตาเพราะว่ามันไม่สามารถไม่ตายเจ้าค่ะพระไม่ตายโยมลิเดียก็หัวเราะนะเจริญพรตอนเช้าอันนี้การถ่ายทอดสดผ่านจากสตรีมยาร์ดผ่านช่องของเพจของวัดศรีแล้วก็ YouTube นะโยมสามารถที่จะฟังผ่าน YouTube ได้ฟังผ่าน YouTube นี่ดูดิสไทยมังอินเดีย UK ช่องติดตามช่อง YouTube นะโยมนะไปที่ไทยมังอินเดีย UK สามารถติดตามท่านได้แล้วก็ในช่องทางของในช่องทางของเพจวัดก็ไปดูที่เพจวัดโยมเพราะว่าเพจนี้ก็จะถ่ายทอดสดเราสามารถที่จะติดตามข่าวสารเรื่องราวดีๆที่นำมาเล่าให้ญาติโยมฟังในช่วงนี้ทางวัดศรีรัตนารามก็มีการพัฒนาปั้นรูปในหลวงนะโยมปั้นรูปในหลวงร.9นะแล้วก็อันนี้ก็มีพระช่างท่านวังกรที่ท่านเป็นช่างพอท่านเป็นช่างท่านก็สามารถที่จะทำงานตัวนี้รับงานอาตมาก็เป็นบุญอาตมาอยากจะทำนะพอทำเลข9เป็นที่เลข9ที่ปลูกผักเป็นที่เก็บน้ำเป็นระบบน้ำนิดนึงสุดท้ายอาตมาก็เลยน่าจะมีภาพปั้นในหลวงพอดีพระท่านมาเข้าปริวาสกรรมท่านเป็นช่างปั้นท่านก็เลยขอจิตอาสาปั้นในหลวงพอปั้นหุ่นเสร็จแล้วก็จะลงแวบลงขี้ผึ้งแล้วก็จะติดต่อลงหล่อติดต่อลงหล่อทองอาจจะหล่อเป็นทองเหลืองหรือเป็นทองแดงเพราะว่าจะอยู่นานเป็นหลายร้อยปีหลายพันปีดังนั้นตรงนี้เราก็จะจารึกไว้เป็นอนุสรณ์นะเอาละในพูดเรื่องไตรลักษณ์อนิจจังทุกขังอนัตตาว่าอนิจจังทุกขังอนัตตารู้เรื่องหน้ารู้เรื่องหน้าเสียก่อนไม่ร้อนใจเราก็ได้เห็นโยมแอมจากสกอตแลนด์แอตโตนาโถโยมก็ได้ช่วยงานวัดวันวาพระศาสนาวันนี้ทางพี่น้องชาวเมืองต่างๆก็เห็นไปรวมตัวที่ลอนดอนมีคอนเสิร์ตลำไยไหทองคำมาแสดงที่ลอนดอนเห็นทราบข่าวว่ารายได้ส่วนหนึ่งก็จะเอาถวายพุทธารามลอนดอนทางพุทธารามลอนดอนท่านก็เพิ่งย้ายซื้อวัดใหม่ก็เกือบ2 ล้านปอนด์เลยนะทางลอนดอนก็มีวัดหลักๆคือวัดพุทธปฏิกรุงลอนดอนวัดพุทธารามลอนดอนนะแล้วก็วัดที่โวกิ้งวัดพระธรรมกายแล้ววัดใกล้ๆแถวนั้นก็เป็นที่พึ่งทางใจญาติโยมวัดเนี่ยอาตมาอยากจะใช้คำว่าวัดเหมือนกับคลินิกวัดเล็กๆก็เป็นคลินิกเล็กๆรักษาใจโยมส่วนวัดใหญ่ก็เป็นโรงพยาบาลใหญ่ต้องมีหมอมีพยาบาลเยอะเช่นเดียวกันวัดใหญ่วัดเยอะก็ต้องมีพระดูแลนะอย่างวัดที่มีพื้นที่ใช้สอยเยอะอย่างวัดศรีตารามก็มีประมาณ58 ไร่วัดพุทธารามท่านอาจารย์ออสก็50 กว่าไร่น่าจะ53 54ไร่กันอันนี้ก็เป็น พื้นที่ใช้สอยแล้วก็ญาติโยมได้มีสเปซมีที่ยืนที่นั่งที่ปฏิบัติธรรมมีช่องว่างลมหายใจฉะนั้นตอนนี้ก็คือการเล่าเรื่องราวที่เป็นสาระนำมาว่าชีวิตเราจะต้องไม่พ้นเรื่องของอนิจจังทุกขังอนัตตานะวันนี้ได้เห็นเราคนแก่คนเก็บคนตายแล้วก็น้อมมาสู่ตัวเองว่าสักวันเราต้องแก่ต้องเก็บต้องตายอันนี้ความแก่ความเจ็บความตายไปไม่พ้นทุกคนมีกรรมจำต้องพัดพรากอันนี้ก็นำมาเล่าให้พี่น้องญาติโยมได้ฟังได้ให้ฟังเพลงสารธรรมจากเป็นเพลงชีวิตไทยในต่างแดน นี่ก็เป็นบทเพลงที่สาระให้ญาติโยมได้ฟังนะเจริญพรตอนเช้านะญาติโยมนะครึ้มฟ้าครึ้มฝนดูเหมือนกับเหงาเหงาเศร้าๆฝนตกปรอยๆนี่นะสภาพอากาศเย็นก็รักษาสุขภาพกันละกันญาติโยมในวันค่ำวันนี้ก็ในเช้านี้ก็ฝากนะญาติโยมให้เห็นสภาพสิ่งทั้งหลายพิจารณาไม่เที่ยงแท้แน่นอนอ้างถึงคอนเสิร์ตที่คุณลำไยไหทองคำไปแสดงที่เยอรมันมีข่าวก็คือการเดินทางมีปัญหาการแสดงพวกไปดูคอนเสิร์ตรอ2-3 ชั่วโมงก็เครียดก็ทุกข์กันไปดูเพื่อจะให้สนุกสนานก็ไปเจอทุกข์ซะแล้วพอนักร้องขึ้นใส่กางเกงยีนขึ้นร้องเพลงบนเวทีก็โห่ไล่ลงขอตั๋วเงินคืนนะเพราะเขาไปรอตั้งเกือบ3 ชั่วโมงนะก็ต้องมีการขออภัยกันแล้วก็เป็นเรื่องของอนิจจังนั่นเองก็ทำเหตุว่าเปลี่ยนแปลงนะฉะนั้นจะได้ไปทุกข์นะแม้มีคอนเสิร์ตที่ไหนคอนเสิร์ตนั้นก็หนึ่งสร้างงานสร้างคนความเพลิดเพลินเงินนั้นก็ได้ช่วยวัดวาได้ส่วนหนึ่งช่วยชุมชนให้มีเศรษฐกิจมีการงานฉะนั้นอยู่ที่ไหนได้แบ่งปันนะวันนี้หรือวันไหนๆนะเราก็เริ่มชีวิตให้มีความพอดีพอเพียงนะอยู่ที่ไหนก็ทำความดีทำหน้าที่แม้บางแห่งบางเรื่องบางราวไม่ใช่หน้าที่แต่เป็นความดีก็จงตั้งทำนะอาตมาได้ตั้งหัวข้อวันนี้ถึงแม้จะไม่ใช่หน้าที่หากเป็นความดีก็ควรทำเพราะความดีไม่ต้องอะไรหรอกพูดดีคิดดีทำดีพูดดีแล้วพูดดีคิดดีทำดีแล้วนะความดีก็จะส่งผลให้จิตใจที่ดีงามและก็ตั้งใจเสมอว่าไม่มีอะไรที่จะเป็นไปตามที่เราปรารถนาทุกอย่างเพราะอะไรเพราะว่าทุกอย่างเป็นไปตามเหตุปัจจัยนะโยมแอมจากสกอตแลนด์ได้ยินชัดเนาะโยมลีเดียจากลอนดอนโยมราตรีจากไหนเนาะจากเบอร์มิงแฮมหรือจากไหนจำไม่ได้แต่มาจำโยมไม่ได้นะโยมที่ว่าอยู่เมืองไหนแต่ว่าจำโยมได้อยู่โยมลีเดียก็ได้ร่วมสร้างถนนเข้าวัดโยมหลายคนหลายท่านก็ร่วมเป็นเจ้าภาพกำหนดที่เจ้าถนนลาดยางไปเข้าวัดวันที่24วันที่24 25นี่ก็จะมีการลาดยางแล้วล่ะโยมก็บริษัทที่เราจ้างเอาคอนแทคก็ได้เรียบร้อยแล้วฉะนั้นช่วงนี้ก็ถือโอกาสนำข่าวเรื่องราวที่เป็นประโยชน์ที่เป็นสาระญาติโยมสามารถที่จะบอกข่าวเรื่องราวที่เป็นประโยชน์ได้เพราะว่าเรื่องราวของวัดวาพระศาสนาเนี่ยเป็นบุญกุศลทั้งนั้นเลยโยมเราเอาเรื่องราวที่ดีไปเราไปบอกไปข่าวก็เป็นบุญนะให้ทำบุญให้ทำบุญด้วยความรู้สึกว่าบุญที่เราทำนั่นแหละก็จะเกื้อหนุนนะใจเกื้อหนุนตัวเองนะเพราะว่าในโลกใบนี้เราไม่สามารถจะเอาอะไรไปได้นะยกเว้นบุญกับบาปนะบุญและบาปที่เราทำนั่นแหละจะเป็นเสบียงจะเป็นเรื่องราวเป็นเครื่องเลี้ยงชีวิตเรานะบุญกับบาปเท่านั้นที่หากันไปอย่างอื่นทั้งหลายก็ไม่สามารถที่จะเอาไปได้นะเมื่อเรารู้ว่าสิ่งทั้งหลายไม่สามารถที่จะเอาติดตัวไปได้เราทั้งหลายก็จะอาศัยบุญกุศลอาศัยความดีนั่นแหละบุญกุศลความดีที่จะเป็นเสบียงเลี้ยงเราเป็นเสบียงเลี้ยงชีวิตให้เราได้มีหลักให้เรามีชีวิตที่ดีขึ้นนะแต่ยังไงวันนี้ก็ถือโอกาสนำมาเล่าเรื่องราวที่เป็นประโยชน์ที่เป็นสาระในภาคเช้าของวันนี้เวลา 10:23 นาทีนะเป็นช่วงที่เราท่านทั้งหลายนะมีโอกาสมีเวลาได้พักก็สำคัญที่สุดก็คือว่าอย่าได้ประมาทในวัยชีวิตนะโยมได้ยินชัดเจนนะโยมเนาะนะอาตมาก็เป็นห่วงระบบเครื่องระบบเสียงบางทีพูดไปเสียงกระหายแต่ก็ชัดเจนดีโยมอนุโมทนาสาธุนะโยมได้ยินชัด1เสียงอาตมาชัด2หูเราได้ยินชัดนะดอกไม้จะงดงามเพียงใดแต่หากไม่มีดวงตาที่มองเห็นก็ไร้ประโยชน์นะความสวยงามความดีนะเราก็พูดง่ายๆว่าเราจะต้องนะรู้จักมีให้เห็นคุณค่าได้มาให้จุลรักษาสิ่งใดถ้าเรากตัญญูต่อสิ่งที่เรามีที่เราได้สิ่งนั้นก็จะเป็นเหตุปัจจัยให้มันอยู่กับเรานานพูดง่ายๆว่ากตัญญู รู้คุณค่าของสิ่งของบุคคลที่เราได้ใช้ประโยชน์ใช้สอยเรารู้ถึงคุณธรรมธรรมะมีคุณค่าแล้วก็นึกถึงคุณของพระธรรมพระพุทธเจ้าพระองค์มีพระพุทธคุณคุณของพระพุทธเจ้าธรรมคุณคุณของพระธรรมสงฆ์สังฆคุณคุณของพระสงฆ์บิดามารดาครูบาอาจารย์ท่านเหล่านี้ล้วนเกื้อกูลเราให้สติให้ปัญญาให้ความรู้นะก็เป็นเรื่องราวที่เรานำมาใช้บำรักษาเมื่อกตัญญูกตเวทีแล้วชีวิตก็ไม่ตกต่ำเราสังเกตดูนะคนที่กตัญญูกตเวทีเห็นคุณค่าสิ่งนั้นก็จะมีประโยชน์และจะอยู่กับเรานานยกตัวอย่างโยมซื้อรถมาคันหนึ่งโยมกตัญญูรู้คุณค่าของรถเติมน้ำมันเครื่องให้มันบ้างดูแลรักษามันใส่ใจมันดูความสะอาดมันนะมีรถกันงามแต่ไม่เคยดูดฝุ่นไม่เคยล้างโอ้สกปรกเข้าไปหายใจมีแต่กลิ่นมีแต่ฝุ่นมันก็ก็เป็นการเราไม่ดูแลมันก็จะทำให้ทำลายตัวเองนะอันนี้ก็ไม่ว่าแต่ว่าเล่าให้ฟังบางทีแต่งตัวหล่อเด็กแต่งตัวสวยแต่งตัวหล่อจากบ้านดูแต่งตัวคีดน้ำหอมงามแต่กลับไปที่บ้านห้องนอนรกพกสกปรกโอ้ยจนแม่บ่นนะอันนั้นเราก็ฝึกเลยเรื่องห้องนอนห้องน้ำที่วัดก็บอกโยมอยู่ให้วัดเนี่ยเราพยายามเนี่ยให้มันสามสอสะอาดสว่างสงบนะก็ต้องช่วยกันดูแลนะร่วมแรงร่วมใจสะอาดเรือนสามน้ำสี่เรือนที่อยู่อาศัยน้ำเรือนครัวเรือนกายเนี่ยก็ไม่พ้นที่จะคำโบราณว่าเรือนสามน้ำสี่คุณสมบัติคุณสมบัติกุลสตรีสมบัติของกุลสตรีไทยเรือนสามก็คือเรือนที่อาศัยต้องสะอาดเรือนครัวที่พักที่ควรครูก็ต้องสะอาดไม่ใช่วางช้อยวางจานเกะกะวางเพื่อวางหม้อวางเนื้อนะอันนี้จะต้องเรือนครัวเรือนที่อยู่อาศัยก็ต้องสะอาดนะเรือนกายคือร่างกายก็ไม่สกปรกไม่โสโครกเพราะว่าเมื่อสกปรกโสโครกก็ไม่มีใครอยากรู้เป็นแฟนนั้นในเรือนที่กล่าวมาเนี่ยก็ถือว่าเราท่านทั้งหลายได้เป็นผู้ไม่ประมาทเอาละสมควรแก่เวลาในพระเช้านี้ขอความพาสุขจงมีแก่พี่น้องสาธุชนเพราะว่าอีกสักครู่ก็จะเข้าสู่รายการเป็นช่วงถวายพระทานเพลงให้ฟังเสียงแคนที่อาสวาที่บ้านดอนไผ่บ้านเปตมาเป็นญาติเป็นนักดนตรีแคนก็ต่อให้เราเอาละอันนี้ถึงแม้จะไม่ใช่หน้าที่แต่เป็นความดีก็ต้องทำ
เธอคือคนที่ฉันรักมาก ใจยังบ่อยากจากน้องไปไสหูบ่น้อคนดี ชีวิตอ้ายก็ให้น้องได้ยอมตายแทนน้องได้อีหลี ถึงน้องสิกลายเป็นของคนอื่นอ้ายก็สิทนฝืนยืนรอตรงนี้ ถึงเจ็บก็สิทนแน่นอนมองอ้ายบ่ดี จะอยู่ตรงนี้เพื่อรอให้น้องเห็นใจ ถ้าสิตายก็ตายย้อนน้องบ่หาอยากสิถามน้องบ่คักๆได้บ่น้อง ขันอายตายสิให้น้ำบ่อยากอายทอบหลอกขอคนดีอยากสิถามน้องบังอีหลีสิให้น้ำบ่มือใดอายเศร้าหายใจน้ำตาสิไหลอยู่บ่ชีวิตของคนก็ซ้อน้องพ่อสิให้น้ำบ่ถึงน้องสิกลายเป็นของคนอื่นอายก็สิทนฝืนยืนรอตรงนี้ถึงเจ็บก็สิทนแน่นอนมองอายบ่ดีจะอยู่ตรงนี้เพื่อรอพี่น้องเห็นใจขันสิตายก็ตายย้อนน้องบ่ฮักอยากสิถามน้องเบิ่งคักๆได้บ่น้องขันอายตายสิให้น้ำบ่ยามอายทอบปลอบบ่ทนดีอยากสิถามน้องเบิ่งอีหลีสิให้น้ำบ่มือใดอายเศร้าหายใจน้ำตาสิไหลบ่น้องชีวิตของคนก็ซ้อบอกพ่อสิให้น้ำบ่ชีวิตผู้ชายบ่หล่อน้องพ่อสิให้น้ำบ่
อาจยามพัฒนนาตาพอจบสักเคธรรมโคตตามบทบาททั้งคำอัดคำแปลและคาถาขออัญเชิญเทพยดาเจ้าท้าวเทวาเชิญเสด็จลงมาจากสวรรค์ชั้นวิมานบนทาง16ของช่องบนชั้นนาฟ้าขอเชิญเสด็จลงมาทุกแห่งหนนาเพื่อมาเป็นมิ่งขวัญในงานมงคลตามจุบนแบบโบราณมีนานมาทางรูปนาพบนามพบจบลำเนาบนยอดเขาท้องทะเลบนเวหาทางเกาะแก่งเวียนน้อยใหญ่ใต้พระสุธาในเขหารามราชรวงตราสวงครางทางพยาวาสุกรีผู้มีฤทธิ์ตั้งแต่ทิศบูรพามาอีกสานตลอดทางปอผู้ฤาษีมีญาณจงดลบันดาลมาช่วยโด ด้วยเถิดนานาครานันเทพพยดาเจ้าเมื่อได้ยินเขาอันเชิญเสด็จอยู่ตามลำเนาเขาเคินเนินผูพาพรางคอยเสด็จลงแล้วตรงมาสู่ยังพื้นภาคสุธาปัทภาพีพรางคอยเสด็จประทับคอยยับยั้งเสด็จลงตรงนั่งประทับที่เพื่อให้โลกให้ใช้ในพิธีเนืองในวันนี้จะมีการเจริญพระพุทธธมนต์
Subject I'm going to talk about this evening is one of the difficult subjects to talk about in Buddhism. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because someone asked me the question yesterday, and also they asked me just before I came in here on the subject of non-self. Because many people who come across Buddhism read the books, and they come across that idea, that concept, that teaching, and they find that many of the other teachings of Buddhism they can accept very easily. It makes such a lot of sense. They usually get stuck on that one about non-self. So this evening I'm going to see if I can unstick you on that sort of question to understand exactly what is meant by that teaching and how it is applied and how it will add value to your happiness. And first of all, that teaching of non-self is just to point out a very deep and profound truth which actually does set Buddhism apart from almost every other religion of our culture, saying that ultimately there's nothing there, it's complete emptiness. However, that is a realization which can only be achieved through the very deepest of the meditations. It's not something that you can hope to find just by thinking about it, because on the surface it goes against what most people take as common sense. That's one of the reasons why people have difficulty with that idea, because it tends to grate against what we think is true, what is apparent to our experience, what we take to be common sense. However, I think everyone should be a bit careful on this thing called common sense, because sometimes the truth is a little bit deeper than that. And you've all heard how that sometimes Buddhists talk about these things as being illusory, or rather delusory, like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, or sort of sawing a person in half. There's so much illusion which can go on there that we should be careful about common sense. And indeed, the greatest insights which come from deep meditation, enlightening insights, are those ones which are uncommon, which actually strike one very deeply and actually completely change the way one looks at oneself, as others, and the world. And certainly after great insights, it seems, that's obvious. But before that, one just could not see it. And I'm sure that you've had many occasions in your life when you haven't been seeing clearly, but you didn't know it. It took something, some shock, some even sort of violent or tragic circumstances which actually change the way one looks at things. So be careful of common sense. The actual teaching of non-self is something which can only be seen after deep meditation, and it does actually shock one. It does take you into a different way of seeing things. However, that these experiences of understanding, of insight, which create greater sense of freedom, peace, and happiness in one's life, that's the end result. That's the culmination, the finale. Then there's many smaller insights which come along the way. And it's those smaller insights which come along the way and build up to that great insight, which I also want to talk about today, because that's also where one can get a handle on this thing which we call non-self, anatta. Because Buddhism was never supposed to be just a philosophy to be talked about over coffee tables and to be thought about and have books written about. It was something far more practical. The only reason it's lasted this long and gone to so many different countries is it's actually added to the quality of life of human beings. And the way that the idea, the concept of anatta, non-self, can add to the quality of one's life is helping one let go, helping one detach, helping one feel more freedom. Because whenever there is a sense of self, sense of me, an ego, there'll always be a sense of like mine, what I want, what is mine, what is under my control, what I need, what I have to do. Because these things always go together. I and the mind. If you start to look at the sense of self in those terms, you're getting much closer to getting a grip on this thing we call self or soul. Because when you start to ask people, self or soul, what actually is it? We have a feeling for what it is in our mind. When you ask a person, who are you? What is this thing in the center of you? What is this person, this me, this self, this soul, whatever you wish to call it? We have like a sort of idea there's something there, but of course it's very hard, impossible even actually to put it into words, to give it some sort of substance, color and shape. So instead of actually asking what a thing is, there's another very beautiful technique to get a handle on things. Instead of what it is, what does it do? Same way to say, what is a car? It doesn't really matter. It might be metal with 4 wheels. That's not necessarily a car. It's what it does which makes it a car. So what does a self, what does a soul, what does it actually do? Have you ever noticed these things, that if something does nothing, if it just sits there, just like this microphone or like this bell over here, it's not a being. It's not a person. It's not an animate thing. To be a being, it has to do something. This is actually almost like the definition of being. So to put it into a nutshell, as I mentioned here for the last time I talked about anatta, there was these 3 very famous philosophers in Western culture. The earliest one was René Descartes, who once said, to be is to do. You notice the equivalence of those 2, being and doing. If you don't do anything, you're not being. To be is to do. But it was actually Jean-Paul Sartre, the existential philosopher in France, who actually turned it around. Instead of is to be is to do, he said, to do is to be. He was the activist. It was only very, very later, just after the Second World War, when a great American philosopher actually put them all together. And he wrote in this beautiful articulate piece, doobie doobie doo, and that was Frank Sinatra. And that was just to show that that's an old joke, but it's a very good one, because sometimes that people get on these talks about anatta and philosophy and they take it far too seriously. But there is a lot of truth there, that a self, a soul, a me, a person is what does it do? What's its function? What's its purpose? Now, the whole purpose of a self, of a me, is actually to do something, to create, to own, to get involved in the world. It's the same with the idea of a God. Because the idea of a soul and the idea of a God go together. The God has to do something to be, certainly to be relevant in society, in the world. The idea of a God just starting off the universe and then sort of having a holiday for the rest of creation, it makes it irrelevant, doesn't it? Okay, so it might have pressed a button, but who cares afterwards? To be relevant, it's got to keep on doing something, create a few miracles or disasters or something or other. Otherwise, it's completely irrelevant. It just shows to do is to be is to do. The same way in the person, the self. So what do we actually do? Or rather, what do we actually own? What is our area of responsibility? The same way, using a simile of a worker in a company. What do they do? What's their area of responsibility? What part of the company do they control? This is your company here. What do you actually control? What do you do? This is where we can start to really understand the usefulness of the anatta doctrine. Because you understand, you've all experienced big egos, big bosses, big politicians, big presidents, the Führer. These are people who want to control the whole world. They've got such huge egos. There's many other people, they want to control their company or their monastery. Somebody actually, we just got a new committee. On our committee, we have the telephone numbers of all of the committee members, from the president, the secretaries, treasurers, and even me. So I'm supposed to be the spiritual director. But I don't know whether it's a joke or it was a Freudian slip, but someone wrote Ajahn Brahm, spiritual dictator. People, people with big egos want to control even the Buddhist societies. But you understand just how much suffering that is, how much problems that sort of makes when people want to be control freaks. How many of you want to control your family? Control your husband, your wife, your kids? That's a bit of a control freak as well, isn't it? And what happens when you start to do things like that? You see that when you really try to control so much, that you get into a lot of suffering. And after all, what does non-self mean? This isn't me, this isn't mine. So the whole idea of actually getting to grips with non-self is like using what do you own? What do you think you control? What is your business anyway in life? Do you really own your children? Do you own your wife, your husband, your parents? Now, I'm sure that many of you have been in relationships which have been very domineering. Just how painful, how much suffering there is. Some of you may be privileged to be in relationships where you never feel like you're owned, but you're respected. Where you're not dominated, but that you're taken as an equal partner. And this is realizing that that person isn't mine. It's not my wife. That's another person there, with their own sort of rights, with their own responsibilities, with their own sensitivities, but certainly not mine. When you have like a boss in a company who thinks that it's your work, they're paying you anyway, so you can tell them what to do. That's a terrible situation to be in. Same in a relationship with another person. When they're controlling you, it's a terrible relationship. And after all, that other person, people should know that of course they're not yours. They came into your life, they're going to leave your life. The same with your children. How many parents get into a lot of problems and suffering because they think the child who's been born from their womb is my child, my son, my daughter? I was trying to mention last week that you just give that person the body. And you train them, you look after them, give them an education, feed them. Where that person came from, the important part of them, their mind, their stream of consciousness, whatever you wish to call it, their character, coming with all its karma from past life, who knows where that came from? When a woman becomes pregnant, you've got this body in there, it's waiting for something to come in. Who knows what will come in? There have been wonderful parents who've had monsters for children. There have been monstrous parents who've had saints for children. Of course, you're probably somewhere in between. Although sometimes you think, maybe on the monster side with your children. But why is that? Every sort of child psychologist would know it can never be explained just by genetics or by the situation of the parents or the economics or the whatever else. But there's so many other factors there. It can only be something which comes in to the child from birth, something outside of the parents. So that's why, as a good mother, you should look at your child as someone who's a friend for a few years. Someone who's come into your life but doesn't belong to you. Nature will teach that to you. When your child leaves home, they go their own way. You realize they're not an extension of you. They're not part of your body like your arm or your leg, which you can tell what to do. But they will go their own way. And the sooner one realizes that, children aren't mine. They're just my responsibility for a while. The whole attitude becomes different. Instead of being a controlled, domineering attitude, it becomes a sense of responsibility, sense of care and love, but a respect for that being as being independent of us. In other words, we can learn how to let go. And even if that child does something we don't like, even really does something, the worst thing that child can do, die. Even then, if we realize that that is not ours, the child has come in according to its own karma, its own nature, it is now gone. We don't need to grieve, to be upset. It wasn't ours in the first place. It came in unbidden. It went without saying farewell. That is the nature of life and death. So the idea of non-self in this sense is realizing that we don't control. It's not a person who owns another person. But deeper than that, they'll be able to let go of our loved ones, be able to let go of our possessions. They're not ours. All the things which you own in this world, your house, your car, your bank balance, doesn't really belong to you. Eventually someone else will take it. If it's not the government, it'll be your children, someone else. So when we realize this is not ours, we don't tend to worry about it so much. How often is it that we get into the illusion of ownership? What do you really, truly own? This is what we mean by investigating non-self. What do you really own in life? It's precious little. Your car, your house, your bank balance. This is just only there for a short while. When you realize you don't own it, it means you can very easily let it go when it's time. In Buddhism, we have this idea of like hungry ghosts. Hungry ghosts who are so attached to their material possessions that when they die, they keep hanging around. Keep hanging around looking after their possessions. What they think of their possessions. It's attachment. They won't let go. Now, don't be like a hungry ghost. Be able to let go. More importantly, deeper in than our physical possessions and our loved ones, we have this thing called our body. And because we've been with this body so long, sometimes we think we really own this body. That we are this body, we identify with this body. This is again where an illusion of selfhood comes from. Very often that people think that they are sophisticated and wise enough to know this body isn't theirs. One day they've got to leave this body, they've got to die. How many people are really prepared for that? It's always a good test of your understanding of life, what you can let go of. For example, I was telling somebody earlier today about this man who went to the doctor, and the doctor said only 3 months to live. He was just devastated. Said, well, there's nothing I can do. He said, well, the only thing you can do is to apply mud packs. I mean, apply mud packs. Will that make me healthier? He said, no, it won't make you healthier, but it'll get you used to living in the ground. That's the first joke I only heard today. Nevertheless, so when we actually look upon this body of ours, how many of us are ready to go in the ground right now? With or without backpacks? Why not? It's because we think that we really own this body of ours. What part of this body do you really own? When you actually start to contemplate this, you're contemplating the way the Buddha asked the monks and the nuns to contemplate. Keep looking at this body of ours. What part of it is yours? If it really was yours, you could actually tell it what to do. But my body goes its own way. Last week I had the flu. I was really quite surprised I got the flu because I went through India and I went through Thailand. They're supposed to be very unhealthy countries, dirty, no cleanliness, especially in India. And I was fine, really fit. Come back to Australia after 8 or 9 days, I'm down with the flu. It shows Australia's a very unhealthy country. That still surprised me. And also, when you get sick, how inconvenient it is. I had all these things to do. It's very inconvenient being sick then. But I couldn't stop it. Nothing you can do to stop sickness when it comes. So you understand that this body does not belong to me. This is not Ajahn Brahm's body. I told many people here before because as a monk, so I've got even less control than you have, especially less control about what I eat. Because I just get fed by you lot. And you put into my stomach not what I like, but what you think I like, or what you like. Because they got this, especially in Thailand, I'm not quite sure if it's the same in Sri Lanka and Burma, they've got this tradition, this Buddhist tradition, that whatever food you give to a monk or a nun, that's the food which you will get when you go to heaven. So everybody keeps feeding me the food that they want to get when they go to heaven, which is maybe not the type of food I'd like to get when I go to heaven. And so I keep telling people, my stomach no longer belongs to me. It belongs to you lot. So you put into my stomach what you like, not what I like. I've got no control over this. And the rest of my body, again, it doesn't really belong. It belongs to nature. That's what this body belongs to. When nature wants to make it sick, it gets sick. Nothing to do with me. When nature wants to make it old, it gets old. When nature wants to take it back and die, it dies. How many people really want to die? Very, very few people. It's usually, if you want to die, say, no, 1 more week, please. Just like, no, after 1 week, another week, please. It's always like tomorrow. Interesting, even like 80-year-olds. Are you ready yet? No, maybe 1 more week. 90, not quite yet. 100. It's always maybe later on, but not now. Now it's inconvenient. So this body does not belong to us. When it doesn't belong to us, you don't worry so much about it. So imagine that sort of, I'm very compassionate, I think, but if any of you get sick, I don't worry about it that much, quite honestly. It's the same with you, isn't it? I mean, even if someone you're very close to gets sick, do you really worry about it that much? A little bit maybe, but not as much as when you get sick. Come be honest. That's why actually there's a lovely story. It's a very deep story from the time of the Buddha. One of his chief disciples was a queen. Now one of his other disciples was a king. The king had many wives in those days, and just really into suffering. Well, sort of, as men are stupid. That balances it. But anyway, sort of, his wife was also a devoted Buddhist, and the monks, would go on alms round into the city every now and again. And one day, the Buddha was going on alms round in the city, and this Queen Malika, his name was looking through the window and saw the Buddha. She was gazing upon this wise, compassionate, amazing monk, just with such wide eyes. It was almost like being obsessed with this monk. And the king saw his chief wife just gazing adoringly at this monk, and he got jealous. So he went up to her and said, "Okay, who do you love more, the Buddha or me?" It's one of those questions which was like double-edged. Whichever way she answered, it seemed she'd get in trouble. She was wise. She said, to the answer to that question, who do you love more, the Buddha or the king, her husband? She said, "I love myself more." Great answer. And the king had thought about it. He said, "That's really strange." So he went he went straight away to see the Buddha, told him what had happened. The Buddha said, "That's a very wise woman." Most people, we think we're compassionate. A lot of times, actually what we're really loving is ourselves. Even as I remember reading in a Time magazine many years ago on the psychology of love, when a man and a woman fall in love, actually they say that what they really love is they don't love the other person. They love the way the other person makes them feel. They love that feeling of being in love. So only when the other person is around that feeling is generated inside of them. There's some nice, interesting thing actually to contemplate, whether that's true or not. The person you love most in this world is yourself. Anyway, when we look upon this body of ours, this is the one we're most concerned with. But if we can only realize that this is not us, this is not me, this is not ours, it's much easier to let it go from time to time, not to worry about it for so much. So much of illness comes from worry, tension, and concern. So we just let the body go and relax. It tends to get better. A lot of times, people get sort of tensions or pains in the body. How many times have you had a pain? Thought it was like a heart attack, or thought it was cancer, or thought it was foot and mouth disease or something? You looked in your mouth recently? Whatever it is. But people worry so much. Like, we have a term hypochondria, or hypochondriacs. We're all hypochondriacs to a certain degree. It's just like, if it really goes over the top, it becomes sort of a big thing. But in this particular case, if we can just let go of our body and realize this isn't our body, this isn't ours, this is one body amongst many we've lived in, we're going to get another body next time, we're not so concerned about it. If through the luck of the draw, luck of the karma, you've been born ugly in this lifetime, don't worry about it. It's not such a big deal. Next time you may get a better chance. Or if you've been born with, I don't know, like young men and young women, you're just so concerned, aren't you, about your appearances? And especially, at least with men, after a while, they can let go of their appearances. But women have to keep worrying about how they look for so many years. It's so painful. Well, it is, isn't it? Come on, be frank about it. Just without worrying whether, your makeup, your hair's right. When you become a nun, it's great. You don't have to worry how your hair looks at all. Or your makeup is same to it. But look, it's when you don't worry so much about sort of your appearance or your body, so much more freedom. sometimes people come to like monasteries or nunneries ask, why do you shave your hair? Why do you just have to worry about what you are not the body? That's why that classic story. Many years that I was to Serpentine Monastery, and she came out from the house next door, and she opened her mouth and just, I'm not quite. She said, "You're." Of course, Friday night. It's okay these days because, people know monks, but 18 years ago when I first came here, people hadn't got a clue who I was and what were you doing. But you don't care about what you look like. That sort of makes so much more freedom in life. I am not my body. Or if I'm sick, it doesn't matter if you get. There's a lot of compassionate people out there. When you get sick, I'm sick, here I am. Now, come on, be compassionate. So you get all these lovely monks, these macho monks, whatever you call it, in the monastery looking after me. Really nice. It brings out the sort of the softness in me. So it's wonderful being sick. So if you're sick, you're giving an opportunity for others to practice their compassion. So don't just try and do things for yourself. If you're going to be sick, try and be really sick to give them more opportunities for compassion in the world. But when you're not so worried about your body, then it's very easy to relax and let it go. So many people are so worried about health and how long they're going to live. And that's probably why they die so quickly. So let go. This body's not yours. When it's time for nature to take it back, okay, I've had a good time together. Great time. See you. I won't catch up with you later. Goodbye. So you can let go of this body. And also you can let go of other people's body. This body is not yours. At least that much you can see as anatta, not self, not me, not mine. And if human beings could at least do that much, to realize that the body is not self, all this racism, genderism, other isms about who's the superior body, who's the most beautiful, the most fit, the smartest, or whatever else, they can all just go out the window. It's just bodies, that's all. Not the person. So we don't judge by what you look like, or how fast you can run, or how youthful you look, how tall, how small, how black, how white. All those body things we can just leave aside. But even sick or healthy. Say that what quite a lovely advertisement said about, I think, MS. It's, don't look at the disease, look at the person. That's why that I was just telling the people in the Armadale group last Tuesday, saying a few of the things which I get up to, talking to the Cancer Support Association. They came to the monastery just a week ago. And someone asked me, well, what do you actually talk to those people about? I tell them my jokes. And I told them the story, which is a very good story. That some years ago, there was a Buddhist nun, or an Australian nun. She was a Tibetan nun, but we have Tibetan Theravada, this sort of stuff. But the monks and nuns, actually, no matter what tradition, we get on really well together. So she was actually staying in our monastery at Serpentine for a while. And then she got very sick, really sick with cancer. She was actually on her last few weeks at the hospice in Shenton Park. And I would actually go and visit her from time to time when she was there. And then she got very close to her end. And like many people, she knew she only had a couple of days left. I got a phone call in the monastery from her saying, can you come around? Because, I'm going maybe next day, maybe 2 days. So, I stopped whatever I was doing and got in the monastery car and went up to Shenton Park. It's a long way from Serpentine to Shenton Park. When I got there, you had to check in at the reception first of all. I was checked in the reception and said, I'm just going to come to see this nun. And the receptionist and nurse said, I'm sorry, but she's given absolute instructions that no one is allowed in. She doesn't want to see anybody. I said, well, that's really strange because she rang me only an hour ago. She said, can I come up? And I've just come up. She said, no, absolutely. She said, no, but she must be something wrong here. So the receptionist took me to the door, pointed at the door, and sure enough, there's a big notice there, absolutely no visitors. Right on the bottom there was, except Ajahn Brahm. See? So I went in, and I asked her, I said, why did you put that notice on? It was very flattering. Why did you say absolutely no visitors except Ajahn Brahm? What she said was actually very meaningful for me, and I'd like to share it with you this evening because it's very good advice when you go visiting people in such situations. What she said was that, look, all the other people who come and visit me here, they all make me even more miserable because they're so sad I'm about to die and sick. You're the only person who comes in here and treats me as a human being rather than as a dying person. You come here and tell me jokes. What's the latest one? When you're dying, do you always want to be told, oh, how are you feeling today? When you like a nice few jokes at the very end just to cheer you up, because you're feeling really down, you're feeling sick, you're dying. You just want to sort of be cheered up a little bit or inspired or give a few nice instructions on what to do when you do die. But don't be morose or sad about it. There's enough time of that when you're by yourself. When you're with your friends, you want friendship. So not seeing the dying, but seeing the person. Not seeing the body which is about to go, but seeing something inside of that, which was there before she was born, which is going to be there afterwards, floating around, seeking for a new body or whatever. So when you can actually see this body, it's not sort of a self. It starts off as a little baby and then grows up into a human being and then goes to a big baby again. That this is just the nature of the body. So the teaching of non-self allows us to have detachment to this body. We don't cling to it. We can let it go. There's so much more happiness and freedom to let this body go and let other bodies go, not worry so much about it. You have to let your body go sooner or later. It's not yours, so why not let it go? But then it gets to the deeper part of it. I've stayed on that part for a long time because it is important. We have really to sort of see this inside of us. It seems obvious on the surface. Get it deep inside of us, and it will save so much suffering and problem and tears and worries in our life, and it will free us to have so much more happiness and peace in life. But deeper than that, we've got this thing inside of us which is deeper than the body. Some people have had out-of-the-body experiences, and they know that when their body is dead, they're still around. But what actually is still around when the body dies, or what was there before the body was born? Where did it actually come from? And this is actually where we start to look at that which we call the mind. In Buddhism, the body, the mind is, if you like, that which feels, that which knows, that which does, that which just can listen, that which experiences the pain, that which experiences a beautiful sunset, that which decides what to do next. This is what we call the area of the mind. And we don't call it a soul in Buddhism, we call it a mind, because we want to get out of this idea of a soul or a self, because even this mind of ours, we could actually see it changing day to day, from time to time. Especially, this is where we get into out and out Buddhist teachings, especially look at the feelings in the body, the aches and the pains and the pleasures in the body. Those same feelings through the sense of sight, the beauty and the ugliness, lovely sounds, unpleasant sounds. And the Buddha said, have a look at these and see that these too aren't yours, but they belong to nature. The owner of all your pleasure and pain, all the beauty and ugliness, is not you, but nature. Because we always seek to own and control the pleasure, the beauty, the deliciousness of life. We always try to control by getting rid of the ugliness, the pain, that which is not delicious. And this is the struggle which we call humanity, which we call life. It's a struggle which is endless and will never find fulfillment because these things are beyond you. How many people can get just pleasure, 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 even for one day, without getting some pain or disappointment? How many people can even sit still without needing to move? Why do you move? Why do you scratch? To get rid of some irritation or pain or discomfort. That's why we move. Even for 5 minutes, it's almost impossible to get just absolute pleasure. This is why that if we look very carefully, using our insight, using our wisdom, we can see that this which we call feelings, pleasures and pains, beauty and ugliness, does not belong to us. It's not mine. We can never possess it. All of the cravings of life is trying to possess this, trying to possess beauty. How many people just work hard and become millionaires and put all of these wonderful paintings and gardens and stuff like that in their house? And as soon as it's there, after a while, it tends to disappear. They get used to it. They cannot see the beauty in it. Or it just disappears. No one can own beauty. No one can contain pleasure. It comes and it's gone. And no one can avoid ugliness. No one can avoid displeasure. When we actually understand this is nature. We get pleasure in life. We get pain in life. Welcome to the club. So we don't get miserable when things go wrong, or when we ache, or when we're in pain. This is what we expect. We don't try to get pleasure, 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 because that is an endless, fruitless source. When we realize these things don't belong to us, only then can we let them go. It's amazing what happens when you let go of pleasure and pain. Sometimes what people like to learn is how to let go of pain. But not let go of pleasure, we'll keep that one. Just let go of pain. So when I tell stories of how to let go of these feelings, how to let go of pain whenever you're very, very sick, or you've got toothache, or you've got a bad stomach or something, monks are very good at doing things like that. We train ourselves to be able to let go of these physical feelings. You can't let go of one without letting go of the other. It's both or nothing. But if you're attached to pleasure, you find you won't be able to let go of pain. That is a problem. So if you really want to let go of these things, you can actually push these things aside. You can watch these things, but without identifying with them. Sure, it's pain, but it's not me that's hurting. This is actually how to let go, actually to separate. This is what the Buddha once said. He said, even though the body is hurting, the mind doesn't need to hurt. It's a great thing to do, and many people do that from time to time. You see monks or nuns or even good lay disciples sort of being able to sort of enjoy enormous pain. It's with complete equanimity. Just noticing it rise and fall, it's just pain, that's all. When it's my pain, it's a problem. This is what we mean by actually letting go. Again, this is one of my old stories of one of the first times I had to do this. Toothache in Thailand, first year as a monk, in a jungle, no telephone, no Panadol, no doctor or dentist within Kui. You're just stuck with it. And when you get sort of pains like that, it was actually a huge toothache at the time. And it was so bad, there's no way you could sleep. First thing I did, have this bad toothache, middle of the night in the jungle, first year in overseas, I tried to meditate it. I tried to control it, get rid of it out of my mind. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, get out of it. But I couldn't control it. I couldn't watch my breath. I just watched the pain instead. And I couldn't stand it. It was just too bad. So I decided I'll do this walking meditation, which as you come on retreats, you do a walking meditation, walking backwards and forwards. I had to stop that because I found after 10 minutes I wasn't walking meditation at all. I was running meditation. This is what happens when you're in great pain. You get desperate and you can't do anything slowly. You're actually running backwards and forwards. So I gave that up. Then I went back up to my heart. I thought, have this Buddhist chanting. All these almost like prayers. I thought these were really powerful. These might work. So I started doing the Buddhist chanting. And after 5 minutes, I had to stop that as well. Because I found because you were desperate with pain, I wasn't ordinary chanting. I was shouting at the top of my voice. I was afraid I'd wake everyone else up. I went on like this for a while, just trying every possible tool I had to try and get rid of the pain until nothing had worked. And this beautiful situation which some of you might come across in life. You tried everything. Nothing works. You just cannot stand the situation of pain any longer. You can't endure. You can't get rid of it. Beautiful situation because that's so pregnant for wisdom and things to happen. What happened for me anyway is I just remembered all the things which people had told me all those years. Let go. Just that word came up, let go. Because of that situation, I did let go. And there's an experience which many people have also repeated. As soon as you let go, trying to get rid of the pain wins. This pain was replaced by bliss. There's no pain there at all. I realized afterwards that physical pain, the reason it was there, or rather the worst part, the 99% of it, was the mental pain. I didn't want to have this. I wanted to get rid of this. Get out of here. As soon as I said, doesn't matter, you can be here for the rest of my life. You can even get worse if you want to. That's called letting go. No more controlling. It's just part of nature. It's not my business. As soon as I did that, that's called letting go. That's also part of non-self, not mine. Please remember that story because it comes to each one of us sometime in our life and we'll have a pain, physical pain, which is so bad we can't endure. We got, for one reason or another, there's nothing we can do. Middle of the night or out in the bush or something or other, or the medication doesn't work. Remember that story. Letting go. Don't try and get rid of the pain. Don't try and send it somewhere else. Just leave it alone. No problem. Now, of course, the warning here is that when I tell that story, some people have tried it and said it doesn't work. I told them why, because it's okay, let go, let go, let go. You're still here. Why haven't you gone yet? That's not really letting go. That's trying to get rid of it. You've got to allow it to be. Allow it to be forever if necessary. Not your concern. Just noticing with, but not controlling. That's what we mean by letting go. Once you can actually see this from your own experience, and actually you know this is true. All these aches and pains, beauty and ugliness has nothing to do with me. Not my business. And then you've let go of a huge amount of attachment in life, a huge amount of craving, a huge amount of business. You're free. This constant searching, this constant trying to get away, always looking for beauty, always being repulsed by ugliness, realizing that this is just like night and day. I always wanted to have day and never have night. Can't be that way. When you actually see the feelings aren't mine, it's just such a relief. So much more business has been finished with. I don't have to worry about this anymore. Sure, I'm going to have, if you don't worry about it and don't go searching for pleasure or pain, you still get the same amount of pleasure and pain. It comes by itself and goes by itself. You don't get any more or any less because this is the nature of the human body, to have both. But what you haven't got anymore is this mental pain of not understanding nature, not being able to live with nature, but trying to make it something it can never be. And when the Buddha started talking about this, he said, go even deeper than just the physical feelings or the mental or the feelings of beauty and ugliness and things like that. We even look at sort of what we call the mind itself, the knower itself. What knows all these things? Not just the objects of pleasure and pain, but the screen on which all this is played out. That's the interesting part, because at the very depth, people think that they are the one who knows. That I am the one who's listening to this. I am the one who is seeing, as if you are just the other side of your eyes. Something looking, something hearing. And this is actually where the deep meditations can really help uncover that illusion. The consciousness is like a television on which all these different programs are played out. Sure enough, you can see the programs change on the 6 channels: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mental consciousness. You can see the different programs on each channel. Now a beautiful sight. You can see the sight channel now if you're looking at me. I switch quickly to the sound channel if you're listening to what I'm saying. Or you might even be on the other channel just thinking about when can you go home. Whatever other channel you're on at the moment. You can see those channels changing. You see, these channels change. In meditation, you see, first of all, 5 channels completely turn off. You're just left with 1 channel, the mind. Then if you go into deep meditation, you see actually the television set disappear. It's even consciousness, the screen on which all this happens, disappears. When you actually see the television go, just vanish, not just see images on the screen, but the television itself disappear. And that's the data, the experience, which shows you that even the knower can come and go. It's not you, not itself. Of course, that's a bit challenging, but it's not as challenging as the other half of anatta. This is the one I taught like this even recently in Thailand to some of the monks there, and even it scared them. I'm going to scare you now. Even the doer, that which does. I really enjoy talking about this. That which does. Who chose to come here tonight? Was that you? Was it that you had no choice? Those of you who are scratching somewhere, or holding your finger to your mouth, or moving your jacket, did you really decide to do that? Was it you who decided that? Or was it all conditioning, all cause and effect, the interdependent play of conditions? You know, you're all great mimics. Much of what you did was because your parents did it. You know, when When I was young, I thought I would try and be independent, not be like anyone else. So I bought my green velvet trousers. No one else in my family had green velvet trousers. And then I went to one of these great rock festivals in the Isle of Wight. I found there was about 10,000 other people with green velvet trousers. Oh, I wasn't independent after all. I was just as conditioned as others. So sometimes we really think we're unique, we're independent. But who's doing that? Now, part of the training in meditation is actually look at where the doer comes from, where will comes from, where choice comes from. Any psychologist should be able to tell you that that which you take as will is not what initiates actions. There's a very nice article in one of the magazines recently. We got actually the book in the monastery recently from where this comes from. It's actually a Buddhist in England called Susan Blackmore. And she was reporting this lovely experiment where some students were asked to just flex their wrists backwards and forwards. And they had some gizmo attached to the brain which could measure what is known as readiness potential in the brain. They could actually measure from when some synapses started to fire where the first stage of actually moving the wrist, when the brain decided to move. They could measure that to a millisecond. They could also measure, they had a little buzzer or some other gizmo, when they decided to move their wrists, they'd press a buzzer and they'd move the wrist. When they were aware of their will. And they had to two times when they were aware that they chose to move their wrist and when the brain started moving. Which one came first? The brain had already began the moving of the wrist first. Afterwards came that which we perceive as will. When we think we're choosing, the whole process has already begun, and it is irreversible. So when you choose to scratch your face, when that first awareness of choice comes up, the process has already begun, and it's unstoppable. What we're saying here is that which you think is choice, is will, is a complete illusion. The same way, when you go to the supermarkets and choose your green velvet trousers, it's not you who's doing that. It's all your friends or the advertisements or whatever else. They made you choose that. So who's in control anyway? So that ends this evening's talk. That's a nice place to end. Leaving you with a very nice deep question. So thanks for listening to the talk. Are there any questions so I can begin this evening's talk? Can everybody hear me okay in the back there? Can you hear me, Peter? Okay, for this evening's talk, I'm going to explain who you are, or rather what you are. So if you always wanted to know this very important question, who am I? Listen carefully. You might find out. Somebody asked me this evening, just a few minutes before I came into here, can I give a talk on the 5 aggregates? This is how the Buddha explained what you are. Not sort of what you think you are, not what you hope you are, this is actually what you are. So, in the Dhamma of Buddhism, analyzing, looking through powerful meditation over and over and over with deep mindfulness to find out what is this thing we call me, you, these people sitting here. And the way the Lord Buddha looked at this, he looked very carefully and saw that it's basically, first of all, into 2 parts, the body and the mind. And of that mind part, he also split it up into 4 parts, the other of the 4 aggregates, 4 groups which comprise the mind. The reason why it was split in these ways It's because this is aspects of one thing which, when you point it out, makes a lot of sense of what we take ourselves to be, what we think we are. So the five aggregates actually, the teaching of the five aggregates start to really illuminate this human problem of what am I? The body and the mind. So often in our contemporary culture, Western scientific culture, that we just think of just a body, just a body, just a body, never even contemplating the existence of the mind. You know, one of the reasons why is because the scientists always start to ask, where is the mind? Because they think you can't point to the mind, they think it doesn't exist. The way I counter such an argument, I ask people like all you here, are you content? Put your hands up if you're content. Right now, can be honest. There's a lot of unhappy people in here. Okay. Those people who put their hands up, they're content. Can you please point to where you're content? Is it in your nose? Is it in your ears? Is it in your legs? The point being here is that contentment is, you're content, but can you really locate it in your body? Can you locate it in space? There's many things like this which I call like objects in the territory of the mind. Contentment is one of them. Happiness. Next time you're really happy, see if you can point to that in your body. Now, what actually is happy? Is it your brain which is happy? Those people who think that the mind and the brain are the same. No, that's stupid, isn't it? It's not your brain is happy. You can't even get anything in your brain. Where is that happiness? Where is sadness? Where is guilt? What actually feels guilty? Is it your toes feel guilty? Is it your hand feels guilty because you punched somebody? Or is it your mouth feels guilty because you said something you really shouldn't have said? But guilt is. These are all things in the territory of the mind. So this is a little exercise. If anyone asks you, I don't believe in the mind. You ask them, where is that belief? Can you point to that belief? When they can't point to it, you say, that's just imaginary belief. It doesn't exist. What you're doing here is you're showing there is more to this world than what you can point to. This is a whole world of the mind. In that world of the mind, the Buddha split it up into four things. Those four things are Vedana. This is a quality of all sensory experience which is pleasurable or painful. I'll go into each one of these in turn. This is just the introduction. Vedana, call it feeling, but I'm not talking about emotional feeling. I'm talking about the feeling of pleasure and pain, beauty and ugliness, nice food, rotten food, nice thoughts, depressed thoughts, quality of pleasure and pain with each sensory experience. The next of these four mind aggregates is perception. This is what the mind does to pick out the important characteristics of an experience. And I'm going to be talking a lot about how that is completely untrustworthy. And then you've got the fourth aggregate is like the mental formations. This includes especially thinking. All of your thoughts which come up, and especially that which is created by the thoughts, guilt, fear, anger, desire. And lastly, consciousness itself, this screen upon which all these sensory experiences are played out. Those are the four mental aggregates: feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Together with the body, that's what you are. But let's look more deep about this we take ourselves to be. First of all, we start with this body, because still many people think they are their body, and they're attached to their body. And if you get married, you get attached to two bodies. And once you have kids, you get attached to 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on how many you have. More attachment, more problem. When we talk about the aggregates, it means when you've just got yourself, like a monk, you've just only got 5 aggregates to be worried about. When you've got sort of a wife, or you've got 10 aggregates, then 15, then 20, it's even worse. You keep on going up by 5s every time. So when we actually look at these things, we have to see, well, exactly this thing we take as a body, what actually is it? So often it creates a lot of suffering and misery and confusion when we don't understand the nature of this thing we call a physical body. It's one of the reasons why, I'm getting into some secrets here, what monks like to do. Sometimes people ask me, as a monk, what do you like doing? Where do you go as a meditator? We go and see autopsies. We're really weird monks, aren't we? You know why you really do this? It's because there you actually see a body taken apart. You see what a body truly is. See young girls, young men, old ladies. In Asian countries, for a monk, that's appropriate. Unfortunately, that some of lay Buddhists too, if they ask permission properly, can also go and see autopsies, not for some weird thrill, but in order to understand the nature of this body of ours. Once you see a couple of autopsies, you see sort of bodies taken apart, all this idea of somebody being beautiful or someone being ugly, about gender, male and female, about race, Asian or European or Eskimo or whatever, and all that sort of completely disappears when you see a body, because you open it up, maybe on the outside they're different colours or different genders. Opening up, it looks pretty much the same for everybody. And all this idea of beauty and ugliness. I'm pretty sure if I actually got out, say the liver, say like Helmut Pearson, and the liver of sort of Margaret Thatcher, whatever else it is, you've got to see. They wouldn't sort of say, oh, that's a really beautiful liver, because you say, oh, Pearson's, when this one is just really this old lady who used to be a terrible politician in England. You wouldn't be able to notice a difference of it. So all this thing about someone who's really beautiful, because it's true, isn't it? When you have the glossy magazines, you never actually see the liver of Albert Pearson. I hope I don't get sued by Albert Pearson's company. But all you actually see is actually the face, isn't it? We take that to be the body. That's why somebody pointed out a long time ago that when we actually talk about the body, this first of the canvas, what do we really identify with? The person's face. That's why in your passports, what have you got a picture of in your passport? Not your liver. Isn't that you just as much as your face is using your face as an organ? Wouldn't it be wonderful? This is my liver. But I'm sure that after a while that people who are skilled in looking at livers will be able to know the difference. We know which liver was which. Oh, that's you. So why is it that we attach to this outer skin of the body? It creates a lot of problems when we attach it to people's bodies. Because we fall in love with them. What do you actually fall in love with? Do you actually fall in love with the person or with their body? A lot of people, they fall in love with a person's body. You're very, very beautiful. Or very, very strong and handsome. Isn't that so? Otherwise, why is it that young, say, men marry young women marry why do they marry old people? Well, I mean, like an old person, they lived their life and they got a lot of wisdom, they got a lot of kindness, usually. So if you really go for someone's character, surely, you want sort of someone who's lived in the world who's wise, rather than these young people who really don't know what they're doing in life. They're not really skilled in the way they're using their mouth and the way they speak to each other because they haven't learned yet. So, but we're not really interested in marrying a sort of a mind. We're really interested in marrying a body, aren't we? Someone looks nice, doesn't smell. You see, I'm being honest, aren't I? That's why you're laughing. Because what I'm saying is not being rude. It's actually true. As I was telling a new retreat here about Ajahn Chah, a great teacher. He's my teacher in Thailand, dead now. Great, great teacher. And one of his stories, and I always remember this because I was actually in the car at the time when this happened. He was sitting in the front with the driver, and there was three of us in the back seat. There was this monk who was quite senior, spoke excellent Thai, so he was a translator, he was an American monk. This little American novice and myself. So in this car, sort of Ajahn Chah suddenly turned around to this novice monk, this young American. He said, "You're thinking about your girlfriend, aren't you?" Ajahn Chah had read his mind. He was so shocked. He said, "Yeah, I was." He felt, he's going to be kicked out of the car or something because monks aren't supposed to think about their ex-girlfriends. So Ajahn Chah said, "Look, never mind. He said, "How can you help me?" He said, "Look, next time you write to your girlfriend in America, so ask her to send something of hers back to you so you can be reminded of her. Then you won't feel so lonely, you won't feel so sad." And this young American monk, young novice, he said, "Is that allowable for a monk to do that? Like they get a locket of her hair, or like a picture, or like, a little bit of her favourite dress, or whatever. Is that allowable to have something of hers to sort of keep? I'm a monk now." He said, "Oh, yes, allowable, it's allowable." He said, "This is what you should do." Then when the translator monk finished laughing, got himself together, he explained what Ajahn Chah asked him to do. He said, "Next time you write to your girlfriend in America, send a little bottle about this big and ask for some of her feces. And then whenever you're thinking about her, just open up the bottle and smell your loved one." That's part of her, isn't it? Isn't that what happens when you fall in love with someone? "I love everything about you, my dear." Do you really? Even when you squeeze, what are you squeezing? No, we don't like to think like that, do we? That's part of every human being, isn't it? But the thing is, when we look at the body, we only look at the things we like to see, not the things we don't like to see. This is like the delusion which creates problems in our life. That's why when we only look at, especially the face or the shape of the body, that's why people get very, very upset when they start getting fat and ugly, when things start to sag. And you know what you have to do to try and keep yourself looking beautiful? Just how much torture you have to go through into these gyms and eating nice, good food rather than the food you really like. Why are you doing that? Is it really to keep healthy? Is it just to keep yourself looking what you think is attractive? When we have attachment to the body, it creates so much suffering. And if we really think we are the body, if that's what we take ourselves to be, it creates huge suffering. We're so concerned about our appearances, what we look like. That's suffering. So it's marvelous actually to not care at all what you look like. Be like a monk. Shave all your hair off, and you don't have to worry about hairstyles. You don't have to have expensive hairdressers. How much does a hairdresser cost these days? Fortune, yeah, it's much cheaper. A razor blade only costs a couple of cents. You can reuse it many, many times. You don't have to pay out with combs and brushes and all those sorts of things. When you only have a simple pair of robes like this, you don't have to worry about fashion. As I said, this robe is not Versace. This is Buddha. Buddha brand. What he's saying here is, when you realize you're not your body, things start to get very simple as far as worrying about your appearance, how you look. Secondly, about old age. You're not so worried about getting old because you know this body is not yours. This is a nature of a body to get old. You're not afraid. I was a young monk in Thailand. A strange thing happened to me because people used to ask me how old my mother was. I had to say, actually, I don't know. She won't tell me. It's really crazy, isn't it? When people don't say what their real age is. And they say, well, because what happens in like the West, like ladies, they always take about 5 or 10 years off their age. They may be sort of 50, but they say they're, just over 40. They're not really lying because 50 is over 40, but what I mean just over is just a matter of debate. But they always try to take off. But in Thailand, that people would actually add a few years onto their age. So people were only 40, they'd say, well, maybe just a little bit under 50. And it was really strange to hear that because people got more respect the older they were. They looked forward to getting old. It was fun to get old. They weren't afraid of getting old. They always had a place in the village when they were old. When it came to the time when they were working in the fields, this is rural Thailand, when the harvest was on, every able-bodied person had to go out into the fields to work. There'd be school holidays, so the kids could go out and help their parents. It was only the very young and the very old couldn't work. So these old people, when it came to sort of rice planting or harvest time, had a wonderful time. They had the little kids to look after. The little kids had the grandparents to look after. And they enjoyed each other's company immensely. They were an important part of the village economy. So babysitters during harvest time, because no one else could be spared. They really had a marvelous time. So no one was afraid of getting old. Unfortunately, in our society, sort of we don't respect the old. And that's a huge problem for us. It makes us afraid of it, of old age. And also it means that we don't accept old age in our body. You get some people who keep on having nose jobs, face jobs, this job, that job. They're really a big job. A mess of jobs. Why do they do that? Because they attach to their body. So, first of all, in the 5 canons, we say, we are our body. When you can actually let go of the body and not worry about beauty or old age or even sickness or even death, this is just a body, that's all. We all know inside of us that one day this body, we have to let it go. We all know that death happens, but we don't never think it's going to happen to me or someone who's close to me. But we're contemplating on this body, realizing this is just a body, it's just made up of flesh and bones and blood and stuff like that. There's nothing magical about it, there's nothing sacred about this. It's just a body, that's all. Then one can very easily let it go. And let other people's body go as well. If you look upon this body just like a car, like a vehicle, you try and make use of this vehicle, look after this vehicle, service this vehicle, give it good fuel. It will last you a long time, but when it's time to go and the vehicle is finished with, then you can let this vehicle go. What happens? You get another vehicle. That's why in Buddhism we have this thing we call the insurance policy. Now, the insurance policy, because if you've got a vehicle, you've got a good insurance policy, it means if your vehicle crashes or it gets stolen, you get all the money back. In fact, if you've got a very good insurance policy, you get even a better vehicle back than what you started with. If you've got a very, very poor insurance policy, it means the vehicle you've had now, the next one will be a really old bomb, or even a bicycle, or even a skateboard, who knows. In this simile, your insurance policy is called karma. So if you paid your insurance premiums by making lots and lots of good karma, it means when this body dies, the next one will be even better. If you haven't made much good karma in this life and this body dies, your insurance premiums haven't been paid up, it means your next body is going to be an old bomb. That's the insurance policy. But this is just the body. So understanding you are not the body. That's one of the first things. People who have out-of-the-body experiences. The word out of the body means they have this mind, this consciousness, which is out of the body, looking down, seeing their body dead on the table. Every time this happens in a hospital, the person is clinically dead. And they're still around. They still know and still see. And there's been so many incidents of that. Maybe you have had an experience of that you know it's real, it happens. So it should show you that you aren't the body, you can exist without the body. And that means that you can let this body go. When it's time to die, this old vehicle, this old car, leave it alone. Someone else look after it. You can just carry on according to the stream of consciousness, the mind. When somebody else dies, you don't have to worry. That's just their body has gone. You don't have to worry, oh, the person has gone. The person is not the body. Surely that should be obvious. But the other four khandhas are all about the mind. And because people don't understand what this mind is very much, it's beautiful teaching about the four aspects of the mind, the four aggregates of the mind. And the first is Vedana. This reason why it's one of the first is because this is one of the most prominent features of the mind, which causes one of the most, probably the biggest problem for human beings. Seeking for pleasure, trying to get rid. Now, when you start to look at this aspect of the mind, and it's true, pleasure and pain it's not imagined, and it's a problem, isn't it? We want pleasure, we want to get rid of pain. As much pleasure as we possibly can. We spend an enormous amount of our individual resources and our society's resources trying to get as much pleasure as possible and trying to get rid of as much pain as possible. By pleasure and pain, I don't mean physical pleasure and physical pain. I mean with all the other senses as well. In Buddhism, 6 senses, if you're talking about sight, pleasure and pain is beauty and ugliness. Not just with human beings, but with art, with seeing flowers or seeing weeds, seeing sort of a mess, or seeing everything nice and tidy. This is like the pleasurable sights and the painful sights. Sounds, seeing beautiful music or rotten sounds of crows crowing or frogs croaking or whatever else is a rotten sound as far as you're concerned. Praise and blame, when people say nice things about you or they say rotten things about you. All these nice sounds and rotten sounds. That's the pleasure and pain with regard to sound. With smells, you all know there's fragrant smells. When somebody pongs, nice smell, and it's not just with people, it's with things in the world. You know that there was once somebody brought here some flowers for the altar. And it's the first time I actually saw this flower, because when I came into the, they actually left it just in the kitchen over there. When I came in, I thought that somebody had stepped in some dog poo. I could really smell this terrible smell. I looked at all the shoes and couldn't find any dog poo on the shoes. I looked on the carpet, couldn't see anything on there, so I followed my nose, smelling. My nose came to this flower. It was one of these flowers in West Australia, which actually, they don't give a fragrant smell, they give this rotten smell of dog poo. Because I don't know if you've seen this before, it's an amazing flower, because it looks so beautiful, so fragrant. But actually it smells terrible, because it uses that smell to attract flies rather than bees, because that's how it's pollinated. So even the most beautiful things can smell. And that's like the pleasure and pain with smell and taste. Nice food and rotten food, which you have to take again. With the body, the pleasure and pain is very easy to understand. And the pleasure and the pain of the mind, the joy and the depression, the happiness and the pain inside. Those are the 6 senses and the aspect of those senses, which is pleasure and pain. Now, the point is, when you explain things like this, it should become pretty obvious to each one of you. You cannot get beauty without ugliness. You cannot get praise without blame. You cannot get a nice smell without a rotten smell to compare it with. You cannot get just beautiful tasting food without rotten tasting food. You cannot get pleasure in the body without pain. You cannot get happiness in the mind without suffering. These go together as a pair. Inseparable. That's why. See, that's a rotten smell and a rotten sight. So the point is that no matter what you get, you have to get these 2 as a pair. That's why that sometimes you start to, this is an important consequence of that, because we try and get just happiness, just beauty, just what we like to hear. We try and find a partner who only says nice things to us, you can't have that. That's why Ajahn Chah said it's looking for the tortoise with a mustache. You'll never find it. But people promise that. They promise if you keep going to church and keep giving your donation, you go to heaven. This is why that when I started hearing about this, I started contemplating, how can you have just happiness? It's impossible. Imagine what it would be like in heaven. According to the heaven which I was taught when I was going to Christian schools, everyone wears white. The only music you ever hear is harp music. Actually, I don't like harp music. I like electric guitars when I was young. Everyone looks the same. And the only food you ever get is ambrosia. Imagine ambrosia for breakfast, dinner, and lunch. Not just on Sundays. Monday to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, week in, week out, year in, century in. After a few million years, you'll be sick to the teeth of ambrosia. That's why there's this story of this fellow up in heaven. And he'd had ambrosia for so long, had a harp music, all these people wearing the same old white clothes. He had this vision of hell. Instead of ambrosia, they had really nice food down there. McDonald's if you want, you could have Chinese if you want, you can have whatever you want down in hell. Instead of having these white gowns, the people were really nicely dressed, in sort of fashionable clothes that really look nice, nice colours, nice shapes. Instead of like harp music, they had nice rock bands, they had big classical orchestras, whatever you want down there. So he sort of got so upset, he went up to one of the angels and said, look, this is not right. I worked very hard. I sacrificed a lot to get into heaven. All we get is ambrosia and harp music. Surely can't we have a few rock bands up here? Can't we have some nice food? Sort of, have sort of the angels and wear some nice clothes, liven the place up a bit. The angel said, no, it's tradition. Heaven has always been like this. You can't change it. It's been like this hundreds of thousands of years. But he said, why don't you change it? This is supposed to be my eternal reward. Whatever he said, the angel just said, no, unfortunately, it's tradition. But he said, look, if you like it so well down there, why didn't you go down to hell? You can have as much rock music as you want. He said, right, okay. So he went down to hell. As soon as he got down there, these big, terrible, ugly, fearsome demons took hold of him. They put him in this big vat of boiling oil and they started poking him with these forks like you see in the pictures. He said, hey, what are you doing this for? Where's the rock music? Where's all the pretty girls in their nice clothes? Where's all this nice food? The demons there, the devils there said, oh, that's just our advertising campaign. Which is true as the advertiser, that's what it's true. We called him out. But the point is, if he did go to heaven, sort of, can there be just pleasure without any pain? If you look in your life, why was something so painful? Because something pleasurable has been taken away from you. Why is something so pleasurable? Because a lot of pain has suddenly gone. In our society, what's happiness? So the happiest day of a person's life when you get married. Why is that? Because of all the suffering of trying to find a partner. It's true, isn't it? It's hard finding a partner in this world. Finally got one, alas, that's finished. What about some of the other happiest days of your life? Like Friday. Why is Friday a happy day? Because all the work. It's painful going to work. That's why I just finished a retreat last week. I was teaching a 9-day retreat in North Perth. And always, at the end of the retreat, everyone's smiling. Because of all the pain they went through for the previous 9 days. Someone said they were very sad when the retreat ended. Why was that? Because of all the happiness they had had. Now it was ending. This is what happiness and pain really are. Whenever I get sick, I never feel as healthy in my life as just after I've got sick. See the need to know sickness to appreciate health. The need for pleasure to know pain, the need for pain to know pleasure. Once you understand how these two things work together, they are inseparable. There is no pain without pleasure. There is no pleasure without pain. There is no beauty without ugliness. There's no ugliness without beauty. There's no delicious food without terrible tasting food to make you appreciate it. Once you really see deeply into this, you realize that this is just weight, feeling. And we're deluding to think we can control this. We can escape from pain and sickness and disappointment and only have pleasure and happiness. Ha, ha, ha. Hands up, anyone here who's never been sick. Hands here, anyone who's never been disappointed. Hands up here, anyone who's never seen ugliness. Hands up, anyone who's never been blamed and criticized. Okay, case proven. That part of the world which is painful, that part of the world is pleasurable. They move together. And the reason why the Buddha pointed this out as one of the aggregates is because through misunderstanding this, we expect that somehow, somewhere in this world, we'll just have pleasure, 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 beauty, 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 nice sound, nice sound, nice sound, nice thoughts, nice thoughts, nice thoughts, thinking that the other half we can get rid of. No way. When we realize we can't control pleasure and pain, that's what we call the end of craving. We let go. Realize that pain we have a fair amount of pain. We have a fair amount of pleasure as well. Par for the course. So whenever you're in pain, you realize it's not going to last. It will end. If you have pleasure, you know it's not going to last. It's not going to end. If you have disappointment, you know it's going to end. You're going to have happiness again. When you have happiness, that's going to end too. Isn't that true? This is not a theory. Isn't that according to your experience so far in life? Isn't that according to everyone else's experience? So be honest to your experience. Second, the third of these aggregates of the mind, this is the pleasure and pain thing, which I just finished with, is also a great source of delusion. It's called perception. Perception is when we look at what we're experiencing and only see what we want to see. We see only what's important to us. If we're in a bad mood, we see only the bad things, which tend to encourage our depression. That's why it's so hard. Like when people come up and they're depressed, they've got problems. Try and sort of get them out of that. Because everything they say, everything they think is looking to support sort of their depression. If they're angry, they're looking to support their anger. They're looking for more evidence to justify their moods. So what perception does, it bends the truth, it selects what you want to hear, what you want to see. You ever had arguments in the house about who said what? You said that. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, you didn't. Yes, you did. Why does that happen? Is it that someone is crazy? The reason is because whenever something is said, one person only hears half of it. The other one only hears half of what they say. Don't see the full story. This is why perception, it picks out aspects. I mentioned earlier, a few weeks ago, which is a very beautiful experiment which was done recently. The experiment with the doors. Remember that experiment on a campus in the US somewhere? This experimenter went up to a student and said, "Where's the way to this lecture theatre?" Just after they asked the question, these two workmen went right between the two of them with a big door. So for maybe 5 seconds, they could see each other. Once the door went past, the questioner continued the question. I said, where is the lecture theatre? The little student said, it's over there somewhere. And what had happened, as the door was passing between them, the original questioner went along with the door, and the new questioner was there. Sometimes they changed even the gender. The first person was a man, it was a woman. Big person, small person. An Afro-American, then a Caucasian. The student being asked a question didn't notice. They didn't notice that the questioner had changed. Why? Because their perception only was looking at the question, not the person asking the question. It was actually proven to be true. What we're looking for is what we see. That's why if you've got an enemy in the world, then whenever you meet them, the reason why they remain your enemy is because you're looking for all their faults to justify your anger. Whereas if you love someone very dearly, doesn't matter what they do, you're looking for things to justify your love. That's why when you first fall in love with someone, you love everything about them. Even the way they pick their nose. It's so cute. But when the anger comes in a marriage, in a relationship, the person says, look, darling, I'm sorry about that. I really love you. What do you mean by that? What are you trying to get out of this? You don't trust. So you're always looking for things to justify your anger. This is perception. You can't trust perception. It always gets you into trouble. Like, for example, this couple, they've been married 25 years, going on the second honeymoon, where they first went to the honeymoon on this beach resort somewhere. As they're walking along, enjoying their memories of 25 years ago when they first got married, they found this little bottle on the beach. It's an old bottle. The fellow uncorked it, and sure enough, the genie came out. The genie said, thank you, I've been in this bottle for 25 years. The couple said, that's amazing, because we've been married for 25 years. The genie said, well, I'll give you a wish. And seeing as there's two of you, I'll give you a wish each. What's your wish? And the wife said, look, we've been working hard all our life. We've raised our kids. It would be wonderful if we had enough money just to retire. Straight away, the genie magicked banknote draft for £1 million. Gave it to the lady. There you are. You enough money there to retire. You don't need to go to work again. She was so happy. He asked the man, he said, what's your wish? He looked at his wife. She was 50 years of age. He said, I wish I was married to a girl 30 years younger than me. The genie smiled. He changed into an 80-year-old. It's true. He had a wife 30 years younger than him. So this is perception, how it can get you wrong, get you into... Genie just perceived it wrong. He didn't really realize what the man had asked. So perception, you base a lot of your experience on what you perceive. I felt this, I heard this, you think you know it. They have in Buddhism a very old story about perception of the 7 blind men and the elephant. Many of you know that story. 7 blind men, one of them felt the tusk, one of them felt the trunk, one of them felt the ears, the body, the legs, the tail. And they asked the blind man, what's an elephant? One who felt the tusks said it was a flower, the trunk said it was a snake, one who felt the body said it was like a big rock, one who felt the legs said it was a tree trunk, one who felt the back said it was a fly whisk, the tail. That's what they perceived. You know what happened next? It's a fascinating story because they all thought that what they felt, what they perceived was the truth. That's what an elephant was. So they had an argument. An elephant's not like this. An elephant's like this. I can feel it. I know it. They had this big argument and fight. It just shows just how our arguments in the world originate. We perceive and we believe that what we perceive is the full story. This is where all the religions in the world come from. perceiving different parts of the elephant, all of the politics, the different parties, different ideologies. This is where all the arguments in your home start from. Different perceptions. Wouldn't it be wonderful? This is actually not in the Buddha story. Wouldn't it be wonderful if those blind men actually met together? Say, well, what an elephant is like, it's got a big snake in the front with two ploughs on either side. It's a big rock with these two fans on. That's what the ears were supposed to be, fans on the edge. That's on a bigger rock on 4 tree trunks with a fly whisk at the back. That would actually be a pretty good description of an elephant. If people would only get their perceptions together, join together, instead of fighting about who's got the best perception, join them all together. Wouldn't that be a wonderful world? We get far closer to the truth that way. So next time you have an argument at home, don't fight over the different views. Join those views together, combine them, and then you'll get much closer to the truth. Also, much closer to harmony. The way the mind works is we keep picking out just a fraction of reality. What we want to see, what we want to hear, what we want to feel. When we realize that the perception is unreliable, all arguments stop. The next of the khandhas, or the aggregates, is what's called mental formations, starting with thought. We really think that we are. This way of it was it Descartes. I think, therefore I am. What a fool. If you stop thinking, who are you then? And in meditation, you can actually stop thinking. No thoughts whatsoever. That's silence. It'd be wonderful if Descartes could learn meditation. You'd actually refute the whole of that philosophy. I think, therefore I am. What happens if you stop thinking? Who are you then? There is some truth in that because we make ourselves up of our thoughts. Who do you think you are? This is actually our identity, isn't it? Our ego. I think I'm a man. I think I'm a woman. I think I'm so old, so young. I think I'm good at this. I think I'm good at that. Be careful of all that thinking, because all that thinking goes one way today, it goes another way tomorrow. All that thinking, again, is based on your perceptions. Does it really ever get you anywhere? All these thoughts. It doesn't get you to truth. Because all thinking leads to a contrary end. It never gets to the heart of the matter. If you really want to know, be quiet and feel. When you actually look at the stars at night, the universe up in the sky, do you really need to think what those stars are? Because I trained in physics, I knew about those stars, and that was one of my pet subjects, astrophysics. I used to go to all these lectures on astrophysics, get to know all the names of those stars and how far away, how many light years they were, what type of star they were. When I knew all of those labels, I could never see the beauty in the heavens at night. What I could see is those labels. My knowledge, I couldn't see the beauty. So it took me many years to forget all of those labels and names and all of those ideas, so I could actually see the stars as a child sees those stars. All the thinking was stopping me seeing beauty, stopping me being at peace with things. That's why human beings in our age are such compulsive thinkers. That probably is the biggest disease we have. It stops us being happy. We just think too much. What happens when something goes wrong? You think. We get disappointed. Think. Someone calls us an idiot. I've heard this one before. Someone calls you an idiot. They shouldn't call me an idiot. Why do they call me an idiot? If everyone is an idiot, they are an idiot, not me. Every time you think of that, you've called yourself an idiot another time. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they just called you an idiot and you just forgot about it? Then you'd only be an idiot once. Every time you think about it, you're another idiot. It's true. So that thinking is idiotic sometimes. It's okay to think now and again, but we think far too much. It's part of the Buddhist training in meditation to curtail this wild thinking, which, because it hasn't been trained, it's like a wild elephant who just crashes through so much happiness, so much possible contentment, and destroys so much peace in our lives. We could stop thinking but listen more. What happens when someone who's close to you speaks to you and wants to tell you something? Do you really listen, honestly? Or do you think, here they go again, can't they shut up? Don't they know I'm busy? I don't want to hear this. Think. So you're not listening to what the person is telling you, just listening to your own thoughts. This is why there's no communication these days. Even, this was actually in the Time magazine, not quite sure if this is happening here today. They did a survey about what people actually do when they're listening to a talk. In this survey, they found that 95% of people, while listening to a lecture, were thinking sexual fantasies. I hope you're not doing that this evening. They're not listening, they're thinking. When we think these things, think, we find we get worried, we get anxious, we get angry, we get guilty. All these emotions, where do they come from? Thinking too much. You know that. That's why the Buddha pointed this out. Thinking, this aggregate of thinking, needs to be looked at very, very carefully, even let go of. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able at any time to find this little switch in your mind to turn off all the thinking and be quiet? Wouldn't it be wonderful to do? This is what meditation's all about. To stop thinking and be absolutely silent. When you're silent, you realize just how you've thought far too much. Just how wonderful it is to be still. How wonderful it is just to be with someone without talking, without thinking. But just knowing in the silence. Every thought which I've had always is not quite true. All the philosophies which you have are never quite true. This is why there's those two types of speech, outer speech, inner speech. The best speech of all is silence. That's why the old Buddha is saying the great rivers are the ones which flow silently. The insignificant, trifling streams are the ones which make all the noise. Great minds are not thinkers. Great minds are silent. All the wisdom of Buddhism, all the wisdom of the world does not come through thinking problems out, through being silent and seeing clearly. That's an aspect of the mind, thinking. When we identify with that, we can't let it go. Actually, this is a problem when people meditate. Why they can't get silent, why they can't stop thinking. You know why? Because you're afraid. Afraid of silence. So much identified with thinking. It's your security blanket. When you're not thinking, you wonder where you've gone. It's marvelous to be silent. So that's part of that other mental aspect. That thinking is the great creator. Sometimes we wonder, like, who created the world? Thought created the world. Not God, thought. Happiness and pain, you thought it. Your house, your career, philosophy of life, who created that? Thought did. Think about that. The last of the khandhas is called consciousness. And consciousness is one of the deepest aspects of these aggregates. This is the last part of the mind. In this description of the aggregates, you can look upon consciousness is like the screen. And all these other things, including the body, the feelings, perceptions, the thoughts, and other mental activities based on those thoughts, such as guilt or happiness or whatever, those are the objects on the screen. That's the program on the screen. Consciousness is the television screen. This is what's appearing on it. The thing with consciousness, though, is because the only time we're here, as it were, the only time we know is when there's something on the screen. And we take this consciousness to be me. I am that which knows. I am the one hearing. I am the one feeling the pain in the body. I am the one thinking the thoughts. This is where the Buddha was very good when he gets to this fundamental part of the mind. He says, really, are you? When he started looking at consciousness in depth, you can see there are actually 6 different types of consciousness, 6 different senses. Seeing consciousness is very different than hearing, which is very different than smelling, which is very different than tasting, which is very different than feeling, which is very different than mind consciousness. What happens if you look very carefully in meditation? Whatever you see with your eyes, then the mind knows. Sight consciousness is followed immediately afterwards by mind consciousness. Whatever you hear, the mind knows. Hearing consciousness, and then mind consciousness. Same with the other body senses, whether it's smell or taste in the body, whatever you feel, the mind knows. That's why with each of these 5 senses, mind consciousness follows directly afterwards. Job of meditation in Buddhism to get you enlightened is to calm down those 6 senses so far they completely disappear, so you just have mind consciousness with no sight, sound, smell, taste, no physical touch. All body disappeared. You can't hear anything. In deep meditation, someone can shout at you. You will not be disturbed because you're way deeper than those 5 senses. In that deep meditation, when, as it were, the body has stopped, there's no sight, sound, smell, taste, or physical feelings. Those are called jhanas. You are still aware. What are you aware of? You're aware of mind consciousness. Mind consciousness is purified, is alone. You get to know what mind consciousness is. The same way, if you want to know what gold is, you have to purify it of all of the other impurities. Get rid of those other things in there. So you've just got gold and no other elements. Then you know what gold is. If you want to know what mind is, you have to get into those deep meditations and you're face to face with mind. What you know afterwards is what mind consciousness is. And then you'll see afterwards that which you took to be continuous flow of conscious experience was just sound and mind. Sound mind, sound mind, sound mind. Sight mind, feeling mind, smell mind. Always mind consciousness, as it were, holding the hand of these 5 other consciousnesses, giving the illusion of continuity of consciousness. When you see the nature of mind consciousness, this idea of a flow of consciousness completely disappears. It's what I call Ajahn Brahm's fruit salad simile. It's like, now there's an orange, and then there's a coconut. The orange completely disappears, and left with a coconut. Then the coconut disappears, and there's an orange again, and a coconut. Then an apple and a coconut, an apple and a coconut. Then the coconut disappears, and then there's a banana. The banana disappears, and then another coconut again. This coconut is always following. This fruit salad means that once the orange disappears, it's completely gone, and now it's a coconut. the coconut disappears as well. These different types of consciousnesses arise and disappear in the mind, one after the other, very fast. Once you see oranges coming and going, completely disappearing, you know that the oranges aren't permanent, aren't essential. They're not you, they're not me. Once you see the bananas disappearing, there's a banana, now it's gone. It means it's not essential, it's impermanent, it's not you. Once you see the coconut, the mind, coming and going, you know that which knows consciousness is impermanent, it's not essential, it is not you. Consciousness is not permanent. That which knows is just a process in the world. It's like people sometimes in Buddhism contemplate impermanence. They see all these things, all these experiences come and go, just like seeing the programs of a television come and go. When, in your meditation, you see mind consciousness disappear, it's like seeing the television in your home completely vanish in front of your eyes. Once there's a television, and now it's completely gone, just emptiness, just space. Then you know that consciousness too is not me, not mine, not a self, impermanent, insubstantial. This is where the teaching of the five aggregates reaches its purpose, its goal. To show you that that which you take to be you, which you think you are, very beautifully described as the body, the feelings, the perceptions, mental formations, thoughts, consciousness itself, when you analyze it, you take it apart, you look at it very deeply, you find there's nothing substantial there. Like froth on the Ganges, the Buddha said, for the body. Feeling just like a raindrop in a puddle. Pleasure, pain, just a drop, and then it's gone. Says even Robert Burns, pleasures are like poppies spread. You pluck the flower, the bloom is shed, or like the snowfall in the river, white for a moment, then gone forever. That's Vedana. Perception is like a mirror. You see what you want to see. It's not what's really there. Like the blind men and the elephants. The mental formations like thoughts. It's like an onion. No real heart to it. You can keep peeling and peeling and there's nothing solid there. Consciousness, or like a magician's trick. The trick of thinking. You are the one who knows. These are the descriptions of the five aggregates. What you think you are. Because you think you are these things, you're very afraid of becoming unconscious when you die, very afraid of not thinking, very afraid of not perceiving, not feeling, not having a body. When we're attached to things, then we have fear. All fear comes from letting go of something we think is very important and essential. When you realize these things aren't important, aren't essential, you can let them go easily. When we don't own anything, then we're free. The more you own your body, do you really own your body? Is that you? Do you really own your feelings, pleasure and pain? Can you control them? Do you really own your perceptions? Are they true? Do you really own your thoughts? Do they get you anywhere? Do you really own your consciousness? Is that what you are? Teaching the five aggregates is to stop attachments, to see the truth, to be enlightened, thereby to be free. So may you all be free, following the teachings of the five aggregates. May these five aggregates which you have now be the last five aggregates. May you not take on another five aggregates in your next lifetime. Otherwise, you might have to come back to Buddhist society and listen to more talks like this many, many more times. The talk for this evening, five aggregates. So I can begin this evening's talk. Can everybody hear me okay in the back there? Can you hear me, Peter? Okay, for this evening's talk, I'm going to explain who you are, or rather what you are. So if you always wanted to know this very important question, who am I? Listen carefully. I find out. Somebody asked me this evening, just a few minutes before I came into here, can I give a talk on the 5 aggregates? This is how the Buddha explained what you are. Not sort of what you think you are, not what you hope you are, this is actually what you are. So, in the Dhamma of Buddhism, so analyzing, looking through powerful meditation over and over and over with deep mindfulness to find out what is this thing we call me, you, these people sitting here. And the way the Lord Buddha looked at this, he looked very carefully and saw that it's basically, first of all, into 2 parts, the body and the mind. And that mind part, he also split it up into 4 parts, the other of the 4 aggregates, 4 groups which comprise the mind. And the reason why it was split in these ways was because this is aspects of one thing which, when you point it out, makes a lot of sense of what we take ourselves to be, what we think we are. So the 5 aggregates actually, the teaching of the 5 aggregates start to really illuminate this human problem of what am I? The body and the mind. So often in our contemporary culture, Western scientific culture, that we just think of just a body, just a body, just a body, never even contemplating the existence of the mind. And one of the reasons why is because the scientists always start to ask, where is the mind? Because they think you can't point to the mind, they think it doesn't exist. The way I counter such an argument, I ask people like all you here, are you content? Put your hands up if you're content. Right now, don't be honest. There's a lot of unhappy people in here. Okay. Those people who put their hands up, they're content. Can you please point to where you're content? Is it in your nose? Is it in your ears? Is it in your legs? The point being here is that contentment is, you're content, but can you really locate it in your body? Can you locate it in space? There's many things like this which I call like objects in the territory of the mind. Contentment is one of them. Happiness. Next time you're really happy, see if you can point to that in your body. Now, what actually is happy? Is it your brain which is happy? Those people who think that the mind and the brain are the same. It's stupid, isn't it? It's not your brain is happy. You can't think of anything in your brain. Where is that happiness? Where is sadness? Where is guilt? What actually feels guilty? Is it your toes feel guilty? Is it your hand feels guilty because you punched somebody? Or is it your mouth feels guilty because you said something you really shouldn't have said? But guilt is. These are all things in the territory of the mind. So this is a little exercise. If anyone asks you, I don't believe in the mind. And you ask them, where is that belief? Can you point to that belief? When they can't point to it, you say, that's just imaginary belief. It doesn't exist. What you're doing here is you're showing there is more to this world than what you can point to. This is a whole world of the mind. In that world of the mind, the Buddha split it up into 4 things. Those 4 things are Vedana. This is a quality of all sensory experience which is pleasurable or painful. I'll go into each one of these in turn. This is just the introduction. Vedana, call it feeling, but I'm not talking about emotional feeling. I'm talking about the feeling of pleasure and pain, beauty and ugliness, nice food, rotten food, nice thoughts, depressed thoughts, the quality of pleasure and pain with each sensory experience. The next of these 4 mind aggregates is perception. This is what the mind does to pick out the important characteristics of an experience. And I'm going to be talking a lot about how that is completely untrustworthy. Then you've got the fourth aggregate is like the mental formations. This includes especially thinking. All of your thoughts which come up, and especially that which is created by the thoughts, guilt, fear, anger, desire. And lastly, consciousness itself, this screen upon which all these sensory experiences are played out. Those are the four mental aggregates: feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Together with the body, that's what you are. But let's look more deep about this we take ourselves to be. First of all, we start with this body, because still many people think they are their body. And they're attached to their body. And if you get married, you get attached to two bodies. And once you have kids, you get attached to 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on how many you have. More attachment, more problem. When we talk about the aggregates, it means when you've just got yourself, like a monk, you've just only got 5 aggregates to be worried about. When you've got sort of a wife, or you've got 10 aggregates, then 15, then 20, it's even worse. You keep on going up by 5s every time. So when we actually look at these things, we have to see, well, exactly this thing we take as a body, what actually is it? So often it creates a lot of suffering and misery and confusion when we don't understand the nature of this thing we call a physical body. It's one of the reasons why, I'm getting into some secrets here, what monks like to do. Sometimes people ask me, as a monk, what do you like doing? Where do you go for some entertainment? We go and see autopsies. We're really weird monks, aren't we? You know why you really do this? It's because there you actually see a body taken apart. You see what a body truly is. See young girls, young men, old ladies. In Asian countries, for a monk, that's appropriate. And unfortunately, that some of lay Buddhists too, if they ask permission properly, can also go and see autopsies, not for some weird thrill, but in order to understand the nature of this body of ours. Once you see a couple of autopsies, you see sort of bodies taken apart, all this idea of somebody being beautiful or someone being ugly, about gender, male and female, race, Asian or European or Eskimo or whatever. All that sort of completely disappears when you see a body, because opening up, maybe on the outside they're different colours or different genders. Opening up looks pretty much the same for everybody. All this idea of beauty and ugliness. I'm pretty sure if I actually got out, say the liver, say like Elle Macpherson, and the liver of sort of Margaret Thatcher, or whatever else it is, you've got to see. They wouldn't sort of say, oh, that's a really beautiful liver, because it's Elle Macpherson's, when this one is just really this old lady who used to be a terrible politician in England. You wouldn't be able to notice a difference of it. So all this thing about someone who's really beautiful, because it's true, isn't it? When you have the glossy magazines, you never actually see the liver of Elle Macpherson. I hope I don't get sued by Elle Macpherson's company. But all you actually see is actually the face, isn't it? And we take that to be the body. That's why somebody pointed out a long time ago that when we actually talk about the body, this first of the canvas, what do we really identify with? The person's face. That's why in your passports, what have you got a picture of in your passport? Not your liver. Isn't that you? Just as much your face is you, isn't your face as an organ? Wouldn't it be wonderful? This is my liver. I'm sure that after a while that people who are skilled in looking at livers will be able to know the difference between which liver was which. Oh, that's you. So why is it that we attach to this outer skin of the body? It creates a lot of problems when we attach to people's bodies. It's going to be fall in love with them. What do you actually fall in love with? Do you actually fall in love with a person or with their body? A lot of people, they fall in love with a person's body. You're very, very beautiful. You're very, very strong and handsome. Isn't that so? Otherwise, why is it that young, say, men marry young women marry young? Why do they marry old people? Well, I mean, like an old person, they lived their life, they got a lot of wisdom, they got a lot of kindness usually. So if you really go for someone's character, surely you want sort of someone who's lived in the world who's wise, rather than these young people who really don't know what they're doing in life. They're not really skilled in the way they're using their mouth and the way they speak to each other because they haven't learned yet. So, but we're not really interested in marrying a sort of a mind. We're really interested in marrying a body, aren't we? Someone looks nice, doesn't smell. You see, I'm being honest, aren't I? That's what you're laughing. What I'm saying is not being rude. It's actually true.